Alrighty, folks. Welcome back. Good evening, good day, depending on where you're coming from. Hope everyone's doing well. First day. Let's go. 100 devs. Let's go. All right. I'm gonna kill the music here. The question today is: would you rather every movie you watch slowly turn into Shrek, or every single song you listen to slowly turn into Smash Mouth's All-Star? So go ahead and put that in chat for me, please. Love to see your thoughts on this. I love Shrek, so I think I'm leaning towards Shrek, but I think if I had Smash Mouth All-Star, I would lose it. So funny commentary. Thanks for the sub. I appreciate that. All right, seems like everybody likes Shrek a whole hell of a lot. So you know what? I like that. I like that we're all into Shrek. I appreciate that. Oops, my bad, bruh. Thanks for the sub. I appreciate that. All right, folks. We are going to give folks a minute or two to get in here. Lots of stuff to go over today, not only just about 100 devs, but we're also starting off at the beginning, covering all the basics of three things. Learning how to learn, some really good evidence-based study tips to help you learn. Then we're going to talk about how the internet works and kind of what a software engineer, a web developer does on a day-to-day basis. And then after that, we're going to talk about all the basics of HTML. So if you don't know how the internet works, you don't know anything about HTML, today's the class for you. We're going to go through it all together. If you've participated in the other previous 5-week bootcamp, great. You get some active recall going on for the next couple of classes, which is going to suit you in the long term really, really well. So if you don't know what active recall is, you don't know what spaced repetition is, you never touched HTML, we're going to get to all of that. So some housekeeping. If you are following along, I would love for you to check in. You can do ! check in, and that will give you the link to the tweet to check in. Go ahead and like that and retweet it for us. Once again, that gets more folks to join our community, see what's going on, and hopefully come learn how to code with us. So go ahead and do that check in if you need it. I changed the timings on some of these commands, so it'll only go every couple of seconds instead of like every 2 seconds that it was before. So you're going to see some slower responses from Nightbot now going forward. A lot of little housekeeping things that we'll get into. Like I said, I want to give folks a minute or so to get in here before we get started. So as always, I'm going to go into Little Leon mode and let questions come in for a minute or two. Then we'll go over what we're going to cover today in class, and then we'll jump right into our lecture. So I'm going to go to Little Leon. Let's bring up the question slide. And so let's get comfortable. Go ahead, if you haven't already, go ahead and do ! bingo to get your bingo cards ready if you would like to follow along with bingo. If you're new here and you need the slides and things like that, you can do ! Discord, and then I'll give you access to our Discord community. You can join our Discord community. Once you join, you got to agree to the rules. Once you agree to the rules, you'll be able to download all the materials in the Follow Along Materials channel. So you'll have all the starter code, all the slides, everything that you need will be there. If you want the actual slides to follow along, ! Slides will give you that link as well. And if you want slides that don't auto advance, like as I'm presenting, the slides will automatically auto advance. If you don't want that, you can just chop off the /live on that URL. So gonna give folks a minute or two to get in here. If you have questions, go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. I'll try to follow along and see if there are any. The slides aren't working currently. Let's see. Slide link is broken. Let's see. Let me try on my end to see what's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and see slides. Devs live. Let me double check on my end. I'm going to go back to Big Leon. The slides should be that link. Let's check here. I'm going to go ahead and grab this real quick. I'm going to put it in chat and then I'll update the actual link. You know what? It might be set to private. Is it set to private? No, it looks like we're good. Let me go ahead and double check and make sure everything is public. That might be our problem. Ah, there we go. They weren't public. So now that link should work for everyone. So let's go ahead and try that again. Cool. All right. I think the slide should be doing now. Slides should be going well. Cool. All right. The slides were private. They are now public. All right. If you're just getting in here and you want the slides, !slides will get you the slides. If you want the materials, join our Discord community. Once you join the Discord and agree to the rules, you'll be able to download all the materials that we'll be using today. There will be some HTML files that we'll be using that you'll need, and we'll go from there. So, welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited to have everyone, excited to take these next 30 weeks together to learn some code, learn the skills that we need to be employable, and walk through all that fun stuff. So I am going to talk through the agenda for this evening, and then we're going to jump right into it. So tonight we're going to talk about software engineering as a career, what that entails, what it actually means, what are the upsides, what are the downsides, and hopefully answer any questions you might have about software engineering as a career. Then we're going to walk through the setup of the course. So the things that we'll be covering, we'll walk through all the little details, like we'll cover how do you check in, we'll cover how do you submit homework, all that fun stuff. So once we get through the course setup, then we're going to jump into learning how to learn. So we're going to talk about some key strategies that are really helpful and have been impactful for my students to learn how to code. A lot of what you might believe as like traditional study habits, they're actually not great study habits, and they actually don't help you to learn material. So we're going to talk through some of the big things that will actually help you learn how to code and have all the things that you invest all this time into learning, have that marinate in your brain and not go away. So we're going to spend some time talking through those things. We're going to then talk about how the internet works, and then we're going to talk about all the basics of HTML. So a lot to get through. As always, the class should go about 3 hours. On the hour, we'll take a break. We'll take 5-minute breaks just for folks to get up, stretch, move, pray, whatever you have to do. You'll have the time to do that. Typically about an hour in is when we'll take the break. Okay. All right. Let's have some fun, folks. Let's get into this. Let's go, Mo Gamer. I see you. All right. So we'll skip questions for right now because today's class 1, so we'll be good. Cookie Codes with the 5 tier 1 subs. Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Welcome everyone that got the sub. Cool. As always, right off the jump, we're here to learn how to code for free, right? Free as in I will never ask you for monies for a course. You will always have a way to get all my materials, everything that I do for free without paying a dollar, a dime, a nickel, whatever. Everything that you do decide if you want to sub or cheer or donate, all that stuff, that just goes to a donation to the nonprofit that I work at during the day, Resilient Coders. So Imran, thank you for the sub, but all that's just a donation. So I am of the belief that you can learn to code, you can change your career, and you can do it for absolutely 100% for free. So that's the whole point of doing this. That's the whole point of this. So I appreciate all the subs. Keon, thank you for the sub, but not necessary, not needed. Don't ever feel like you have to, and know that it's going to a good cause if you do. All right. So hopefully you're here to learn how to code. Hopefully you're here because not only do you not want to learn how to code, but hopefully you're here because you might be interested in a career in software engineering, right? The goal of 100 devs is to help 100 folks get into a new career. We started off by reaching out to folks that were affected by the pandemic, folks that might be in a position to want to see if they can change careers, or unlock something that might help them put food on the table, help them reach the things that they want to reach. And so code for me has always been a way up and out from the very beginning. And so I want to hopefully help folks utilize code in the same way that I have. So careers in software engineering are some of the best. And there's some of the best in a number of ways that you can qualify it. They're high paid. They're the happiest. And you don't need a degree, and you can learn it all for free. So it's a career that has an average base salary of $92,000. For the past 3 or 4 years, has always been in the top 5 of the happiest careers. And you don't really need a degree, and you can learn it for free. So to me, that seems like all the bells are going off. That seems perfect. But it's very hard. It's something that's going to take a lot of effort. And we're going to talk through, and realistically, what does it take to go from zero to being a software engineer, and how this course might fit into it. Okay. Now, I'll give you a little bit about my background so that you understand why you should be maybe listening to me, or why you might want to kind of stick through this course. And we're going to talk about the career aspect of a software engineer, but I want to step back for a second, tell you a little bit about my background so that you understand where I'm coming from, so that hopefully that influences you to maybe listen to me and maybe think that I might have something to share here. So I was very blessed. In 6th grade, I had a computer science course, which blows my mind. In 6th grade, I was using QBasic to make a sailboat go from one side of the screen to the other. I got a sailboat to move across the screen. I lost my mind. I thought I had magical powers, and that was it. I wanted to code. Didn't have a computer at home, didn't have a laptop, didn't have anything. But at school, I had this ability to use these computers and to make things happen. Tucci, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Fast forward to high school. I went to an engineering high school in Philly. That's a thing. It's called Engineering and Science. It's an engineering school. I had years of C++ in high school. Once again, mind blowing that was an actual thing, right? And so I had a couple computer science classes in middle school, and then a couple in high school. And then I got to college at Yale and completely forgot all about code. I wanted to study biology and all that fun stuff. And then you can hear Simba in the background. Shout out to Simba. And then once I was in school, probably around sophomore year of college, I kind of got the entrepreneurship bug. I wanted to build nonprofits. I wanted to build companies. And I slowly started to teach myself how to code again. And my senior year of Yale, I dropped out to start a company. I started a scientific surveying company. It doesn't sound fun, but it was a lot of fun. We had thousands of universities that used our software. We had hundreds of scientific papers that were published because they used our software. Donnie, thank you for the sub. And I was surrounded by some brilliant engineers. And every day I went into work really happy that we were doing big things, but I was always kind of secretly jealous because the folks that were on my team, they were really good coders. And I wanted to be able to build products. I wanted to be able to have the ideas that were in my head come to life. And I wanted to be able to do what they could do. And so I started to teach myself how to code. I spent a lot of nights and weekends pouring through books, doing tutorials, doing anything I could do to get that magic that I felt when I was in 6th grade. I wanted that power. I wanted that ability to create. I wanted that ability to have an idea and turn it into a business, to have an idea and to see it, to play with it, to be tangible. And so that pushed me to learn. As I was learning to code and getting better at it, and my company was going along pretty smoothly, General Assembly asked me, hey, do you want to start teaching? So I've been teaching web development, particularly front-end web development, for the past 8+ years at General Assembly. I do their front-end courses at night. And around 4 years ago, I wrapped up that scientific surveying company and joined a nonprofit called Resilient Coders. Resilient Coders is a free nonprofit stipend and bootcamp for students of color in the Boston area. We've helped hundreds of people get into jobs as software engineers. So my evenings are spent teaching folks. I've taught thousands of folks to code. My days are spent getting folks into high paying careers as software engineers. Coordinate, thank you for the sub. And so I feel like I've maybe learned something over the past 4 years at Resilient Coders and the past 8 years at General Assembly that hopefully we can pass on to all the folks here, right? Now, the first time I made that shift when I was in college, where I decided I wanted to learn how to code, was a very emotional moment for me. And it's a very specific moment that guides why we're doing this right now. And so when I was in college, I didn't have money for food because I had moved off campus and I didn't have money for food. But I knew that I had been learning how to code and I knew I could build websites. So I went on Craigslist and I said, hey, I will build a website. And I forget how much I said I was going to charge, but I said, I'll build your website for cash. That same day, somebody responded and said, hey, like build the site. I met with them. They gave me a deposit, blew my mind. And I skipped all the way to the grocery store to get my pasta and pasta sauce because I was hungry. And so that was the light switch. That's when the entrepreneurship drive clicked on. That was when I realized that code had value, and that's pushed me all the way for these past 8 or so years. Now, times are tough. All the folks that applied to 100 Devs, I watched all your videos, I read all your submissions, and the pain is there. Some of you folks are going through some really rough times, and you just need a shot at something that can put food on the table, just like code did for me. So that's why I'm showing up. That's why I'm putting dozens and dozens of hours into setting this up. That's why I'm coming every week, 3 classes a week. That's why I'm in the Discord channel, because I want you to have that same opportunity that has changed my life. The ability to know, like, on demand, I can make money, I can put food on the table. The ability to know that I have a career that doesn't really have that, like the ceiling is very high on software engineering. Your first couple of jobs, yeah, they might be slightly lower pay, but you can, if you decide to buckle down and keep learning and keep pushing, you can go up and up. And so I want that for everyone. I want that for everyone that's in this channel right now, that's watching me right now. That's what I want for you. So a career in software engineering pays well. It's the happiest, but there's a lot of other things you can do too. By maybe week 6 or 7, I'm going to ask all of you to start freelancing. So even before you unlock a career or a job, I want you to start freelancing and bringing in clients and making money with these skills. By the end of program, you will have made a project for a client. You will have built a large passion project for yourself. You will have worked in an engineering team, right? And you will have a portfolio of work that will help prove to yourself and employers that you have the skills to command a job in software engineering. Now, this is all very hard. This is all very rough. We're going to talk about all of that and how realistic this really is or not as we progress. But that's the goal. I want 100 of you all, hopefully more, to have that opportunity to go to bed at night knowing that you have a skill set that's in demand, that you can use to put food on the table, and hopefully provide a career that can change maybe some of the unfortunate circumstances you're going through right now. Now, if there was something else, if underwater basket weaving paid $92,000 a year, was a super happy career, didn't require a degree, and you could learn for free, that's what this class would be. It would be all about underwater basket weaving. I have 2 things I'm good at, my 2 skills. 1, I have a very strong short-term memory, and 2, I learn really, really, really fast. So if it was underwater basket weaving, I'd be spending my nights and weekend learning it so I could teach it to you all. But that's not the case. Right now, coding, specifically software engineering and a career in web development, is a very clear, direct path to a high growth career And so that's why we're doing that now, right? Cool. So software engineers, what do they do? And what are we focusing on for this bootcamp? Software engineering is a term that is not something that doesn't have like a very everybody has their own definition of software engineering, but we can boil it down to a professional who writes code and understands not only how to write code, but understands all the tooling and systems that are needed to write code that a computer can understand. And when I say code, I just mean instructions that a computer can understand. Now, software engineers might work on web applications that open up in a browser. They might write apps that run on your phone. They might write apps that run on your refrigerator or your coffee machine, right? So software engineering is kind of a profession. It's idea of writing code, but it's understanding all the tools and systems, sometimes a little bit of the math behind things, everything that's what most folks think about when they think about software engineering, right? Some people are going to tell you that you need a 4-year degree to call yourself a software engineer. Bullshit. Don't need it. If you write code, you conduct yourself as a professional, you know and understand the systems and the tooling behind the stuff that you're writing, you're going to call yourself a software engineer. Okay. Now, software engineers are going to focus on different things, right? They're going to have specialties. The specialty that you're going to have by the end of this class is the ability to build full stack web applications. You're going to be able to call yourself a web developer. You might start to call yourself a software engineer that specializes in web development, right? So we're going to focus on web development, which means building things that run in your browser, things that run in Chrome, Firefox, Safari, things that are what you would call like websites and all the stuff that comes behind websites and all the things that you need to make websites run. Okay. Now, you could take these skills that you learn as a web developer and decide that you want to go work on mobile apps. You could take the skills that you learned through this bootcamp and decide, you know what, I really want to go work with robots, right? The fundamentals are going to be the same, but the languages and the tooling that you learn might be different when you go to apply it to a different domain. So you would still be a software developer, a software engineer, but your specialty might change depending on what you're interested in developing or building. Okay? So we're talking about web development. And the reason why we're going to focus on web development is because we can learn using one language, and that's something called JavaScript. Don't worry if you don't know what HTML, CSS, or JavaScript is. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But the reason why we're going to do web development and that specialty in a subset of learn how to write code is because full stack JavaScript is super in demand, right? It is one language that you have to learn really well instead of a varied mix of them. And the jobs right now are wild. They're high paying. Every major metro area has folks that are looking for JavaScript developers. So the reason why I focus on web development is I think it gives you broad skills. It's in demand. We really have to really learn one language. And the other really big thing is that web development really isn't taught in 4-year universities. Like if you go to study code at a 4-year university, like if you go to study computer science at a 4-year university, you're probably going to have like 1 or 2 classes, right, that cover web development. And that's it. So if you leave a 4-year CS program and you want a job in web development, well, guess what? You're teaching yourself a lot of this stuff. So that gives us a little bit of an edge when it comes to like, if we can learn the practical skills needed, right, that can open up opportunity for us. And then we can backfill all the things that we would learn in a 4-year program, right? So you can learn the practical skills that'll make you available, like a valuable employee day one. And then as you progress, you can fill in your data structures, your algorithms, the things that would be taught at a 4-year CS program, right? So that's the idea. That's the idea why we're focusing on web development. One language, super applicable, highly in demand. You don't need a degree. And then you can use that to go and unlock a good career. So that's the idea. That's the idea, right? That's the idea behind this. Now, when you look at these web development jobs, you look at these software engineering jobs, they pay well. They're the happiest. And so that's what I want for you. So that's what we're going to do. So that's the idea here. Okay. Now, we're going to move through and start talking through like, what does a web developer actually do on a day-to-day basis? What the heck is this HTML, CSS, or JavaScript? That's what today's class is about. We're going to talk about how the internet works and how all these technologies come into play. And so by the end of today's class, you should have a broad idea of like what a web developer will do and what you might get paid to do in the near future. Jen, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Holy smokes. What the heck? 10 gifted subs. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Holy smokes. Cool. PARS. Yes. All the classes are recorded. Everything will be immediately available on Twitch. And then a day later, everything will be on YouTube. And so you can always watch immediately on Twitch and always catch up on YouTube as well. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Cool. That's the idea. So hopefully you're here to hopefully learn a little bit about code. Hopefully you're here to maybe unlock a high growth career. But that's all the wonderful stuff. Let's talk about the not so wonderful stuff. Cool. So we know that it's high paying. We know it's happiest. We know we don't need a degree. We know we can learn for free. And there might just be a slide in our office space. That's Ticketmaster's office. They literally have a slide that goes from the top floor to the bottom floor. Okay. Now, the hard thing here is that everyone is starting to realize this. And we're experiencing a gold rush of sorts. Okay. Everyone's experiencing a gold rush of sorts where folks really want to sell you on a dream, right? They want to sell you on this idea that if you just buy this course and you push yourself really hard, you could go work at Ticketmaster where you'll leave your office with the ping pong table and you'll take the slide down to the second floor where the arcade is, and you'll go past your free Starbucks that's inside of your office, right? So this is the tricky thing right now. People realize that this is a possibility. You can really do this. And I'll share the numbers from the programs that I help run. Like, you can really do this, but a lot of people are starting to realize that you can sell this dream, right? And so this dream leads to a lot of folks going down a path that might not be correct because people are trying to extract value out of them. And so be careful. That's what I want to say. Be careful. You can learn all this stuff for free. You do not need to pay a dime to learn any of this. But people are going to play with your psychology. They're going to play with your mind to say, you know what? If you just bought this course, if you just bought this interview prep, you would get closer to the dream. And so I see a lot of students that get caught up in this whirlwind of hopping from course to course, jumping from language to language, and they spin their wheels for 2 years and they never get there. Right? And so we're going to talk about how you can do this for free and how you can do this even without me. Like, if you never come to another stream again, I hope you leave with this. You can do this for free. And there's really 3 things I would tell you to do. Learn the basics. Go through one full stack tutorial. Then build your ass off. Build a passion project that you're going to sink hours and hours into. If you do those 3 things and then switch gears to interview mode and interviewing your ass off, you can unlock a career in tech. You don't need to buy a course. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to listen to me to do that. Do those 3 things and you'll be good. Okay. But here's the reality. It's very, very difficult to learn how to code. And it's very, very difficult to find a job. Like your first engineering job is super hard. I would say the learning how to code portion is easier than finding your first role as a software engineer. That's the truth. And so most folks are going to go through this trough of sorrow. And most folks, Riki, thank you for the sub, never make it out of this trough. They just don't. I've seen thousands of people learn how to code. I've seen hundreds get jobs, and I've seen double those numbers start, get like a quarter of the way through the trough of sorrow, and then they give up. Time and time again. Okay? Time and time again, most folks get to like here and they give up. A lot of folks get here and they go home. The idea is that we're going to do things that will help you get through the trough of sorrow. But if you never listen to me again, there's a way to get through the trough of sorrow. And it's by having a community of folks that help you get unstuck. That's it. Most folks start learning how to code. They do it on their own. And when they get stuck, that's it. Game's over. They go home. So I think we've built a pretty good community. I think our Discord community is amazing. We have phenomenal mentors that are there every single day. We have phenomenal students that are there every single day learning how to code, sharing fun things. Like, join our Discord community. Get unstuck when you're stuck. If you don't like our community, that's cool. There are dozens of other communities that you can join that will have abilities for you to get unstuck when you get stuck. Okay? So, if you are going to learn how to code, make sure you find a community of individuals that are going to help you get unstuck. That's the easiest way to make it through this trough of sorrow, right? Most folks, they buy a bunch of courses because buying and planning feels good, right? They kind of crack open that first course and they start to realize how hard it's going to be. They start pushing through the trough of sorrow. And then right before they think they make it, there's like this crash, right? That crash can be like the project you've been working on for weeks just doesn't work and you can't figure out how to get it to work. That could be maybe your first interview. Maybe you have a first interview where you go in feeling confident, you go in feeling great, and it just all goes to hell, right? Then you're going to have some squiggles of hope, and then hopefully you get to the promised land, okay? Yeah, some folks might recall the trough of sorrow tutorial hell, where you're kind of just like losing it going through tutorials. But the idea here is that you can make it through this. You can make it through this whole system, and I'm going to talk about how you can make it through. But the realistic timeline here is anywhere from like 12 weeks to over a year to get through this whole process to where you're on this side feeling somewhat confident in your ability to write some code, right? 12 weeks to a year. Now, the folks that do it in 12 weeks, they're probably going through a boot camp. And a boot camp that probably meets every single day. A boot camp that has built-in structure and support for them, right? Those are the folks that might be able to eke it out in 12 weeks. 12 weeks is very, very short for this, right? So that's the quickest I've ever seen it happen is like 12 weeks, right? The boot camp I help run during the day is 20 weeks, and they're with me every day, and they put in 12-hour days. So the boot camp is 20 weeks long. They have me in the classroom. They have 2 other experts and residents in the classroom. They have a small team that's helping source leads and help them unlock interviews and things like that. And even with all that support, only 85% go on to get jobs. Now, the 85% that do go on to get jobs, The starting salary is $98,000. So like what? That you in 20 weeks you can go from never really having touched code before to a starting salary of $98,000. Right? Those are the real numbers for my bootcamp. Right? A lot of boot camps, when they tell you, oh, we have 99% graduation. Bullshit. That's probably bullshit. They're probably like hiring back some folks or some other weird stuff. Right? The idea, though, is that they're putting in 12-hour days. They have a small army that wants them to be successful. They have a huge support network. Right? That's the reality of like doing that quickly. If you don't have those things, it's going to take longer. Okay? If you don't have a community that can help you get unstuck, it's going to take longer. If you don't have significant time to commit consistently, it's going to take you longer. Right? And so I want to be very real and very upfront that this trough of sorrow is mind-numbingly hard to get through. But it is possible. I've had folks from any walk of life. I have had folks that are returning citizens that were incarcerated, hadn't touched a computer in 5 years, to having the skills to command a job in software engineering. I've had folks that were parents doing this nights and weekends that were able to get jobs. It's possible. Serpina and Bugaboo, thank you for the hydration. That's the first one. You might have noticed that the channel point numbers went up. Cheers to you, Bugaboo. Cheers to you, Peanut. Cat, cheers to you. All right, don't everybody lose their mind and start doing the hydrates now. All right? I've seen it. I've seen folks go through this process time and time again when all the chips were counted against them and come out the other side. Okay? And there's really only a few things that I've seen that have been the difference maker. There's only a few things that I've seen that really made the difference into whether or not they were successful. Okay? I'm drinking some water tonight, Bonnie. I'm drinking some water. The three big things that I've seen that have led to folks being successful and getting through the trough of sorrow has been, one, managing frustration. Folks that can manage frustration well learn how to code. Now, the interesting thing is that managing frustration, like when you look at like learning theory, there's a couple things that you can do that would increase your chances of learning something. One of those things you can do is like increase your IQ. Okay, like there are ways to increase your IQ. IQ increasing is temporary. It eventually doesn't last. One of the other things that you can do is learn to be a little bit more conscientious. That's like a big thing nowadays that people talk about. But really, there was a study that came out that looked at individuals and the period in which they lost the ability to learn a new language. Right? Like a new language, like not like coding, but like Spanish or French or something like that. And there was a lot of things that came out around like when they lost the ability, and it's way later than we ever thought. Like it's late into the teens when like fluency becomes harder to achieve. But a lot of the work that came out around those papers were that the reason why adults have a harder time learning languages really kind of came down to like two things. One, you don't have as much time when you're adult and have to like put food on the table. And two, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to not be in control. Right? Like as an adult, like if I want to get up, I'm going to get up. If I want to go somewhere, I'm going to go somewhere. It's frustrating to not know how to get to the thing that you want to get to. And that's why they're saying that language learning can be harder for adults. And I see this time and time again when folks approach learning how to code. I can smell it. You walk into my classroom, I can smell it on you. I can smell whether or not you handle frustration good or bad within like the first week. The interesting thing though is you can learn to handle frustration. You can get better at this. You can become mindful of it and be aware that the thing that might separate you from learning how to code and not learning how to code is a mindset and how you approach problems, and whether or not you let yourself not understanding something get the best of you. If at the end of the day you say, you know what, learning how to code is not a reflection of myself, my intelligence, it's merely a reflection of how hard I want to work, you will get to the other side. You will get to the promised land. Right? So managing frustration is the biggest thing I've ever seen. Like when I have two students that come into my classroom, if I had to gamble, I'm going to look at how they deal with frustration in the first week, and I can almost make a bet. Right? So not letting things eat at you, at the end of the day, being able to shelve things, being able to say, look, I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. I didn't get it today. I didn't get it the day before. I didn't get it last week, but tomorrow I'm going to get it. That mindset is the differentiator. Coding is hard. If you can manage your frustration, you can come out the other side. The other thing is consistency. Most folks will start learning how to code, but they're going to say, you know what, Leon, I can only study on the weekends. I only have a little bit of time. I only have time on Saturday. You know what? On Saturday, I'm going to spend the whole day studying. Right? Sounds great. Saturday, I'm going to spend the whole day studying. Beautiful. Problem is most people don't have the attention or the ability to study that long, that hard, because they haven't worked up to it. We're going to talk about how you work up to being able to study longer, but most folks can't sit down and study for 5 hours, especially if you haven't been in school for a while, especially if you haven't like had to learn something new recently. It's hard to be able to focus for that block of time. So a lot of folks, they come in and say, Leon, I'm going to study all Saturday. I'm like, that's going to be a problem. I can tell you right now, it's going to be a problem. They're like, no, I got it. I'm going to study for 5 hours every Saturday. Cool. All right. Try it. A month later, how's those Saturdays going? Oh, I did it the first Saturday and then I fell off. I had a baby shower to go to the next Saturday. And so I skipped that Saturday, and then like the next Saturday, like it was Halloween. So like, you know what I mean, Leon? I stopped. Okay, Doge, I feel attacked. So here's what I tell folks. Every day you have some amount of time. I really hope that you have some amount of time that you can commit to this. You are better off doing 20 minutes a day of serious work than you are trying to block off larger blocks of time that you hope you're going to get to. Right? Be consistent. Find a small chunk of time that you can do every day. I'm hoping that you can do at least an hour a day. That might mean you wake up a little earlier. That might mean you go to bed a little bit later. That might mean that you take a half an hour during your lunch and a half an hour when you get home. It might take you talking to your partner. It might take talking to your family and saying, hey, I want to do this to better our situation, so I'm going to need an hour a day. Right? I'm going to need an hour a day. Here's where I think I can fit it in. And then during that hour, you're going to be as focused as humanly possible. And we're going to talk about how to increase your focus and how to do that later on. But consistency is key. And being realistic with how much time you can commit to this. Right? So many folks come in, I'm going to 10 hours a day. I got this. And they haven't studied in 4 years. No way. Pick a time that's reasonable, that you can be consistent with every day, not time blocking, and commit to it. Folks that are consistent, learn how to code. Folks that can manage their frustration, learn how to code. And then the third is taking care of yourself. I got this gift because I Googled marathons I Giphied marathons, and this is what came up. Straight Jacket, thank you for the hydrate. Cheers to you. Right? This is what came up. Thank you. This is what came up. Learning to code is a marathon, not a sprint. The number of folks that start hard and burn out is really damn high, like really high. I've had something on my GitHub for a long time that says, if you want a learning plan, I will help you with a learning plan. I've had hundreds of folks reach out for learning plans. The folks that have gone from learning plan to actually coding, very low, like really low. Forrest, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Right? Most folks, if they can manage frustration, great. They're doing good. If they can find consistent time, they're good. Then they forget to take care of themselves. This is the last thing that I noticed that stops people from learning how to code. Here's how it normally shakes out. Learning to code is hard mentally. You need to be doing things that can help, right? Like that can help you manage that stress. That can help you manage the idea that like you're trying to consolidate a lot of new information. So that means things like maybe trying to exercise a little bit, maybe trying to eat a little bit better, at least definitely sleeping. This is where a lot of people mess up. They don't sleep. How are you expected to consolidate all the things that you just learned into long-term memory if you're not sleeping, right? And I'm not talking anything hardcore, right? Like Lucio Mo said, walks are great. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Get up moving, right? Understanding that you're pushing yourself through a marathon, not a high-paced sprint. A lot of things I also see too is that a lot of people do too much at one time. They're gonna read this book, they're gonna study this tutorial, they're gonna learn this language and that language, and they're gonna do all of this instead of just focusing on one thing. So one of the things I hope you get out of the course is that I'm gonna give you everything that you need to get from zero to having the skills that you can be employed with. That's my promise to you. A lot of you are gonna want to push more than that. Great. Push. But make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're getting that sleep. Make sure you're doing the things that you need to be doing so that you're not stretching yourself too thin. Right? These have been my warnings. Okay? These are the things I've noticed that make the difference between folks that get across to the promised land and folks that don't. All right. I know it's a lot, folks. All right. But above all this, don't let your dreams be dreams. If you have a goal of being a software engineer, you have a goal of unlocking a high growth career, go for it. Bust your ass, take care of yourself, manage your frustration, be consistent, and you'll make it to the other side. We got a great community. We got a lot of folks that are here that want to see you succeed. I want to see you succeed. Put into it and you'll get it out. Thank you for the hydrate. Cheers to you. Where did I put my water? I'll put my water in front of me. All right. So questions about any of that stuff. I know that was a lot. I know that was kind of like me kind of doing a little ranting there. But I do it because I've seen hundreds of folks start, thousands of people start and not get across the finish line because they do all those things either incorrectly or not right. So I'll save any questions and then we're going to move through the course setup. On the download, how long is this course? It's going to be 30 weeks. 30 weeks. But the thing here about the 30 weeks is that the really hard part about getting your first job is not the learning to code. The learning to code is the easy part of getting a new career in tech. The hard part is the networking and interviewing it takes to get a career in tech. Okay. So we're going to have a lot of advice and classes on how to apply, how to network. But I'm telling you now, that's the hard part. The learning the code, you can do that, right? You can do that. The networking, that's hard. And so we're going to talk about what that is and how that, what that entails. But that's the thing you need to keep in mind. It's going to be, that's the hard part. Reptar said, do you have any advice on those struggling with mental health? Like managing my frustration is one thing, but also managing the weird stuff in my brain is another big challenge for me. So every person is different. And if that's something that you're struggling with, I encourage you to talk to me. So I'm bipolar. I've been dealing with this for the past, 7 years now, 8 years now. I have attention issues on top of being bipolar. And for me, it's about doing all the intangibles, but everyone's mental health is different and everyone's experience is going to be different. For me, I have a couple things I have to do. I have to sleep. If I don't sleep, I'm fucked. I have to take my medication. If I don't take my medication, I'm fucked. If I don't time box my day, like plan out my day, I'm fucked. All of this is really important. It took me a long time to figure out. And so every person's gonna be a little bit different. We're going to open up a mental health channel on the Discord where hopefully we can share more of these things. But I encourage you, if this is something you're really struggling with, reach out. I've been there. I hopefully can understand somewhat where you're coming from. Maybe we'll do a stream on that. I think maybe we'll do like an office hours just on mental health. I think that'd be a good topic to cover for a lot of folks. Mama 3, thanks for the sub. I appreciate that. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's do an office hours just on mental health. I think that'd be a good way to do it. I think there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about, and I think that could be like a whole session of itself. So let's do that. Hey, Peon, thanks for the sub. I appreciate that. All right. Let's talk about the course setup, folks. Course setup. We're about 53 minutes in. We're going to talk about the course, and then we will take a break. Okay, so we'll go through how the course is going to be set up. Then we're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about learning how to learn, and then we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of today of learning how the internet works and all about HTML. All right. Course setup. We're going to ease into this, folks. There's a lot of you. I did a lot to set everything up. Had a lot of mistakes. So we're going to ease into the course. A lot of the things that are requirements won't be hard requirements for the first 2 weeks or so. Okay. So for those that are following along in House Touring or House Hopper, you have some pretty stringent requirements you have to be kept to, but we're going to ease into those things. Serge, thanks for the cheers. We won't have class next Tuesday because of the election in the US. So that's going to give us a little bit more breathing room to kind of ease into these things. Okay. So, materials. Every single class, I will post what you need for today on Discord. So if you want the starter code, you want the link to the slides, all of that will be posted on Discord first. So every time before class, you're going to want to go to Discord. You're going to grab the starter code that's there. It'll typically be a zip file. You're going to want to download that zip file, unzip it, and that way you have all the starter code. The link to the slides will be on Discord as well, so you have a link to the slides. If you don't like these auto-advancing slides, you can just remove the /live, and that will pull off the auto-advancing, so you can move through the slides at your pace. And then as we kind of progress, I'm going to put everything on a GitHub repo. If you don't know what GitHub is yet, it's just a place to kind of store code for now. And so I'm going to put all the backdated stuff on GitHub. Some folks ask why not Slack and why Discord? Mainly just because Discord has a lot more permissions and the ability to do grouping better. The thing that Discord doesn't have that makes it inferior in some way to Slack is it doesn't have threads. But other than threads, I really like Discord. And so we've been using that for a while. We've used that for the past bootcamp. So all the materials will be on Discord. And then as we kind of progress a little bit, all the back stuff will be on GitHub as well. So every single day you come to class, you're going to want to go to Discord and get all the materials. All right. Ski said Discord for president. All right. Checking in. This has been really confusing to a lot of folks. All I'm asking you to do is, if you're in touring and Hopper, is every class I'm going to tweet. I have a bot that's looking at the likes and retweets for your attendance. So the reason I'm doing attendance this way is, one, so that we can grow the community, and hopefully more folks that are affected by the pandemic have the ability to join and learn the skills that they need to hopefully unlock a career in tech. And two, I want to be able to have some way to see kind of people slowly falling off. There needs to be a little bit of a barrier of entry, right? Because the idea is that this might not be a good fit for everyone. The folks that got selected into House Touring and House Hopper, it might not work over the long term. And so what I'm using this is kind of like, all right, has this person showed up to every class? Has this person done what they needed to do to move into Hopper, to move into touring? So as folks move out of touring and move out of Hopper, the folks that have been checking in, participating here in Discord, they'll have the ability to kind of move up into those two houses. For those that are really new and have no idea what I'm talking about, this whole bootcamp is titled 100 Devs. If you join our Discord and you join the 100 Devs, you can be placed into one of three houses. The folks that applied got placed into Touring and Hopper and House Hamilton. Those that are new and haven't kind of missed that application process, you can join House Hamilton. And it's just groups where you're going to work together. As we progress through the course, you're going to be doing a lot of teamwork with folks in your house. And so it's going to be important that you kind of hang out in one of those houses so that you can have a good community to work with and to work through code with. And to, when we get to like working in teams, that's who you're going to be working with. Now, the folks that are in touring get a lot of goodies for free. Like they get resume review, portfolio review, all that stuff baked in. Those that are in Hopper get private review sessions, and those that are in Hamilton and Hopper can unlock everything that you would get in touring through channel points. Okay. So if you look below the send a message here on Twitch, there's a little picture of me. You click on that and you see all the options that you can spend your channel points on. So you don't have to sub to get our emoticon, the little micro Leon. You can just use your channel points to unlock that icon. You can ask me to hydrate. You can highlight a message. You can ask me to do all these different things just by using your channel points. And so you can get most of the benefits of following along simply by hanging out, participating in chat, getting those channel points, and then using them to unlock the things that you want later on. Okay. Now, if you don't have Twitter, you're going to want to make one. Okay. And the reason for this is because you're going to use this as a pretty strong tool for helping you to get a job. Whenever you are going for a job in tech, we do not apply. Okay. We do not apply. We network our way into a position. Right? We network our way into a position. And the way that you do that is it's a slow process over time. So we're going to talk a lot about how to network your way into a position, but the full stop is, if you are trying to get a job in tech, clicking apply, you might as well take your resume, ball it up, and throw it in the trash can. It just doesn't work. Right? What you want to do is, when you see an opening of a place that you want to apply to, you want to have a few folks that you know at that company that can recommend you, or somebody that knows somebody that can recommend you to that position, and get your resume right in front of the right person. Clicking apply, you might as well just light your resume on fire. It's probably going to do much more for you than clicking that apply button will. Okay. So there are little cheeky things that we can do to build our network and to make sure that we're kind of reaching out to folks. We're going to have whole classes on this. We're going to make it so that if you feel really nervous and awkward about networking, we're going to have solutions for you. If you're a super extrovert, we're going to have solutions for you. Don't worry about it too much for right now, but Twitter is going to be a part of this. Basically, you're going to build a hit list of companies. You're going to follow folks that work at those companies, make yourself present, make sure that they can see you, right? And over time, you're going to build up your network. And Twitter is a big part of that. And so you're going to want to be on Twitter, but we're going to have whole classes on that. Don't worry about that for right now. This is just me answering like why Twitter is important. It's going to be a big portion of how we network with other developers, hiring managers, companies, things like that. So you might as well get used to using it. Check in through Twitter, and then we're going to slowly start building up how important it is. All right. I see a lot of people just typing hydrate or just typing stretch. Got to use your channel points, folks. This don't come for free. All right. A few more things. Networking. Okay. A big part of this bootcamp is going to be networking. Not starting this week, not starting next week, but the week after is when the networking is a requirement for house touring and house hopper. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find each week 3 individuals that are already in tech that you've met through something like a virtual meetup. Okay. Folks that are already in our Discord channel, that are already a part of 100 devs, do not count for your networking. These have to be new folks that you met by putting yourself out there. Now, whether that means going to a virtual meetup or doing some text-based networking, that's going to be for us to kind of figure out in a couple classes from now. But the idea is that each week, if you're in touring and hopper, you're going to try and connect with 3 individuals already in tech and have 2 coffee chats, meaning where you spend a longer period of time talking one-on-one with someone. We're going to have a whole class on how to do this. Don't worry about it for right now. And so we're going to ease into all these requirements. But that's the idea, something you're signing up for, right? You're signing up for this idea that learning to code is not enough. I'm going to say it one more. I'm going to look directly at my mic. I'm going to say it. Learning to code is not enough to get a job in tech. It just won't work. You got to build your network, and you can't just click apply. Now, are there some folks that have gotten jobs without networking? Yes, of course. Right? Let's not speak in absolutes, but we're talking about giving yourself every available advantage going into the job search process. And that starts early. That starts before you know what the heck you're doing with code. And it starts with networking. Okay. And so we're going to ease into that as well. Nothing is required of you this week. Nothing's required of you next week. We're going to have a class next week on networking, but know that that's coming. Right? Don't be nervous, Pasta Lord. I love that name too, Pasta Lord. Don't be nervous. Bid it. Don't be nervous. We're going to have lots of strategies for folks that aren't comfortable networking, that may not feel comfortable reaching out to individuals. We're going to have a whole class on how to do this well and have strategies for every person, no matter how extroverted they may or may not be. Audacious Ginger says, I just don't like people. Well, that's the hard part. People like to think of like software engineers like these nerdy folks that don't talk to anyone. No, software engineers work in teams. They're a sociable bunch. Don't buy into that stereotype. All right, let's keep pushing here, folks. And we're going to take a break soon, I promise. We'll definitely do more of those icebreakers. I think that was a lot of fun. All right, submitting your work. Work will always be due the week after it's assigned. Okay, so you have homework that I'm going to assign tonight. That'll be due a week from now. Now, Tuesday, we don't have class because of the election. So we're going to bump it to Thursday. But every other time I assign something, Blink2, appreciate the sub. Thank you. Every other time I assign something, that's going to be due a week later. Okay. At first, you're going to submit your assignments through Google Forms. And then later on, you're going to submit your assignments through pull request on GitHub. Don't worry about what that means right now. Just know that at first, you're just going to be filling out a Google form with your work. After that, you're going to be using GitHub. So your homework this weekend, Kat, is just to read and watch. We're going to go in the honor system with that. I'm going to assume that you have read and watched everything that I have assigned, and I'm going to ask you to submit just a brief 1-paragraph summary of the learning tools that you're going to use going forward. So you're going to have like a very small assignment, just submitting what you've learned. That's it. Like a short paragraph, what you've learned, but that's it. And I'm going to assume that you've actually watched the videos and that you've actually done the course. Okay. A brief 10-page essay, Shimp? No, just a small paragraph. Okay. A lot of this is for you all, right? This isn't for me. I already know how to code. I already have a job in tech. Don't cheat yourself, right? Put in the work, you get more out of it. So that's kind of what we're going here. So we're going to have some trust systems in the beginning, but eventually your code will be like auto graded. I have a lot of auto grading that I've been working on. And so as we progress, the tools and systems will get more and more robust. And like I said, we're easing into this, folks. So homework will always be due a week later. First via Google Forms that I'll share, and then on GitHub. Coding challenges will also be a big part of what you do every single day. So not only will you be learning, not only will you be networking, you will be doing a coding challenge every day. Not yet. Right? Good old Matumbo. Not yet. Right? But as we progress and we start to learn JavaScript, every day you're going to have a coding challenge. At first, I'm going to share coding challenges with you that I'm going to expect you to do, and you're going to submit them. And then eventually we're going to switch to using things like Code Wars and LeetCode. Okay? Mermesh says, oh no, auto grading. But not yet. Not something you need to worry about, not something you need to stress about right now, but know that it's coming. So every single week, you're going to have 2 classes, Tuesday and Thursday from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time here on Twitch. Typically every Saturday, we're going to have office hours. No office hours this Saturday because it's Halloween, right? Like I said, we're easing into this, folks, right? So you can expect 2 classes. Those are the mandatory ones. Office hours, not mandatory. Hopefully you get a lot of value out of just asking questions, looking over code. So this will typically be every Saturday. And then you're expected to have 3 networked connections, folks in tech that you did not know that are not part of our community, and ideally that are in your local area. So if you're in a town, hopefully you're networking within that town or city. If you're not, don't worry. If you live in a town that doesn't have a tech ecosystem, we're talking about how to do this remotely as well. You're going to be having 2 coffee chats per week. You're going to have a code challenge every day. Yes, every day, not just Monday through Friday, every day, right? Do we need to go back? And I think we need to go back. We need to go back and talk about that trough of sorrow, right? We were all here. We're like, Leon, this is awesome. We're going to learn so much, right? We're riding the high. You were pumped. And now it's like, all right, class 2 times a week, office hours on the weekend, coding challenges every day, networking, right? This is what I'm talking about. Folks, get up to the peak. They look over and go, not for me. Not for me, right? But this is like a roller coaster. Hopefully you're locking in and you're putting the hands up and you're ready to go for a ride, right? Because the peak there's 2 ways you can enjoy the peak on a roller coaster, right? You can go down that roller coaster screaming and being terrified, or you can be that person at the top that's screaming and having the best time of their life on that ride down. It's up to you how you want to choose to go down this cliff. You can go down screaming, or you can go down having a lot of fun. I hope you're going to go down the cliff having a lot of fun. Okay. But no, there's a lot that's expected of you. This doesn't come for free. This doesn't come free in terms of like effort. Money, it's free. I'm never going to ask you for anything money wise, right? But in terms of effort, it's a lot. And some of you might be like, you know what, Leon? Not for me. That's okay. That's okay. This might not be a fit for you. This might not even be a fit for you right now. You might say, you know what, Leon, I like you. I like your hair. You seem pretty cool. but not right now. Cool. All of this stuff will be on YouTube. Every class will be on YouTube, so you can catch up at your own pace. You can use our Discord community to get unstuck. But I'm hoping the bulk of you stick around. You get to ask your questions live, and we go through this experience together. All right. Community rules, and then we're going to take a break. So I'm just going to do the community rules, and then we're going to take a break. Community rules are really important. We're building a community that should be safe and supportive for every single person that is here, both on Twitch and in our Discord community. We so far have been pretty lax with moderation. There are a lot of like Autobots, like a lot of like curses and stuff get filtered out. That we still have that, but we're going to kind of step up moderation a little bit. We're trying to make a really positive and inclusive community. And if that's a hard thing for you, this is not the place to learn. Okay. So we have some community rules that I'm going to read very briefly that we all agreed to when you showed up, and they're still in play. Okay. No not safe for work stuff in the Discord community or here on Twitch. No illegal discussion, no hacking, no anything like that. No ban evading, no changing your IP or things like that. No discrimination, right? This includes using racist terms, slang, sexist or ableist terms that make others feel bad for their race, gender, sexuality, disability. And there's extensive requirements about this in our community that you agreed to when you signed up on Discord. We're going to hold you to those things. No advertising, so don't share like your YouTube or your Twitch or other social media, except in the networking channel. That's where you can share that stuff if you want. And don't ignore. We're going to give you some warnings. We're going to give you some mutes if you kind of step over these lines. That's okay. We're not going to kick you or ban you for fudging one of these, but we're going to ask you to keep it good. No abuse, no toxic behavior, no spam, and keep it a positive community. The thing I want you to ask yourself before you post something on Discord, is that the most positive, encouraging thing I could post? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. And if that's hard for you, leave. Like, just leave the chat right now. Just like stop watching me, right? We're trying to build a place where people feel safe, where they feel comfortable, and they can learn to code. And if that messes with you in any way, shape, or form, just leave. I don't want you here. Right? Good vibes only. All right. Now, there might be a time where you don't feel comfortable. Somebody might have stepped over their boundaries. I keep looking down for my water. I put it in front of me because people are doing it. Diz, thank you for the hydrate. Cheers to you. All right. There might be times where folks overstep their boundary, where somebody makes you feel uncomfortable. My hope is that if that happens and you don't feel like people are respecting you, or you don't feel that you feel safe in the community, I'm going to ask you to do one of three things. You can message me directly. My DMs will always be open. You can DM me directly on Discord. If you don't feel comfortable coming to me, we have lovely mods. Alyssa and Okayla are more than happy to field any questions or concerns. You can DM them as well. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to myself or mods, but you still want us to know, you can submit an anonymous report by just doing !report in Discord. In chat, and that'll give you the anonymous link to submit. Now, if you submit it anonymously, it might take me a little bit to see it, as opposed to a DM, which is kind of instant. So just be mindful. If you're submitting it anonymously, it might be a couple of days before we actually see it pop up. But those are kind of the ways that you can get in touch. Once again, be positive, good vibes only. We're trying to make this a safe space for everyone. And Nash, I am drinking water. All right. I know this is a lot. We've talked about a lot. We still got a lot to do tonight, but it's time for a break. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to put a timer up on the screen here. We're going to do 5 minutes. And in these 5 minutes, remember, take care of yourself. That was one of the big 3. Take care of yourself. Stretch. Hydrate. Kiss your loved ones. Do what you got to do. Take a break. Leave. Walk away. Go stretch. It's all good. We'll be back in 5. All right. Now, typically during this time, I'll answer questions. I'm going to stretch real quick, so I'll be right back. And then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer questions while we take a break. Right back. Boop. Not that kind of stream, folks. Not that kind of stream. You're not going to see the stretching. That's the OnlyFans goal. All right. Please, if you're still sitting, please get up. Like, seriously. Go get water. Like, stop looking at me. Stop listening to me. Go get water. Hydrate. RAY, I'm standing. Good. I like to hear that. Audacious, but your voice is so soothing. I gotta like play like really bad music or something to get y'all to go away. Will this class help us get hair like Leon? Maybe we'll do it as like a bonus class, like my hair routine. We can do a bonus class on that. Drake's getting some tea and cake. I love it. Let's put a little jams on here while we wait. You got 3 minutes, folks. Go get some water. Go hydrate. Diabolical. Hey, Leon, can you say Octothorpe? There you go. For the folks that are playing bingo in the back, Octothorpe. Do we have a new song for 100 devs, or is it the same as the 5-week? Cookie, I do have more that are queued up, so hopefully when this one ends, we'll have another song that plays. Jeff said, what shampoo do you use? I used, what's in the actual brand? It's an argan. It's like the blue argan oil shampoo. And I just switched to Trader Joe's conditioner, which is surprisingly fabulous. The final tier slowly shifts into Smash Mouth. Oh, I should have thought of that. Next time, that definitely doing that. Little Bonnie said, question for the folks in Hamilton, can they submit homework in any way? Absolutely. Just submit it like you would submit it any other way. So you'll be able to submit. Ooh, winter, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, there you go. Here for the food, OGX. Yep, that's it. Forgot the brand for a second. Beard lotion. I use it kind of looks like pomade, but it's for your beard. I haven't looked. I gotta look at the brand. I forget the brand. It's just like I just bought one that I think I saw at like Ross. That's what I use. It's like but it's more like a pomade and not a lotion. Chris, they're obsessed with Legos. I'm obsessed with Legos too. I love me some Legos. Audacious Ginger, does your daytime company have any summer internships? No, we've done interns once in the past, but we're pretty anti-internships as a whole, so I think it's kind of like not a thing that we probably would do. Last Avatar is ready for the Dominoes. I love it. Sus. Some of the things are, yeah, the bingo cards are interesting, huh? You'll learn about them hopefully as we go through. Crumb Hustler, what mic are you using? I am using the Blue Yeti Black. Yeah. Rocket Dodo said, are you vegan, Leon? Yes, I am. The Lego NES. I haven't seen that. That's fire. I would love to build one of those. I got played. That's what happened. Oh, I'm getting played for bingo. That's what people are doing. I just got it. I'm like, why are you asking like these questions? That's so interesting. Nah, I got played is what happened. Oh, I see y'all. Y'all are really out here, huh? Would I be able to do the homework on an iPad? Yes, you should be able to use an iPad. There are text editors that work on an iPad, and you can use web-based editors as well. Oh God, I can't believe I got played like that. Tone, thanks for the hydrate. Cheers to you. All right, folks, come on back. Come on. Oh, Bonnie too. Not you, Bonnie. Oh no, I've been getting played this whole time. I was like, why are people asking these like very specific questions? It's all for bingo. Exclamation point bingo, folks, if you want to play along with the class bingo. I've been bamboozled. Yes, Shells, bamboozled. All right. Just because we love you. All right, I see how it is. All right, folks, come on back. Come on back. If you're stretching, if you're hydrating, swing on back through. We're going to get into this. Miami Joe said, to have better organization for the class, can you or your TAs make a syllabus that outlines all the assignments, due dates, weekly goals, etc.? No. And the reason is a very specific reason. I've taught classes for 8+ years, and I've done it every type of way you can think of. When I don't give like actual clear-cut directions, people learn more. Because guess what happens when you join your job? Your boss isn't going to list out all the assignments that are due for you. They're not going to make it nice and neat and tied with a bow. And so you got to start practicing that now. So it seems a little weird. I know it seems a little odd, but trust me, I've tried it every other way, and I find time and time again when I make folks actually have to pay attention, like when they actually have to listen to the assignments and they have to listen to what's due, it winds up better in the long run, because when they're on the job, they get it. They're used to thinking and paying attention, and so yeah. So that's why I'm very specific in not doing it. It's like, hopefully you see all the work I've put into this, and it'd be kind of silly if I just decided to like not do something that would take me 10 minutes to do. Right. And so the idea here is that there's something more going on there. But that was a great question. Yeah, I agree. GC, I agree. All right, let's keep pushing, folks. All right. This is something that blows my mind and is absolutely criminal that it's not taught in middle school, high school, and college. And that's learning how to learn, right? There are scientifically proven ways to learn material, to learn it in a way that you remember it forever, and to learn it faster and more efficiently, okay? Your homework between now and next week is all about learning how to learn. You're going to watch 2 really important videos by Ali Abdaal that talk through how to learn, and specifically the 2 things that are on the screen right now, active recall and spaced repetition. I'm going to break down the basics for you right now, but you're going to watch the videos for homework because they include all the science, and you don't have to take my word for it reading Rainbow, right? You can see the facts and why it's important to utilize these 2 techniques. This is the game changer for a lot of my students. The things that you think are helpful when it comes to learning just are not. All right. So if you've ever done one of these before, I just want you to put a Y in chat. Okay. Just a Y for yes. If you have ever reread a chapter of something multiple times to learn, I didn't even say the question yet. Right? All right. I got some Y's. If you have ever highlighted, put a Y in chat for me, please. If you ever like highlighted the things that you're reading and learning. If you've ever done summations or taken like really copious notes, put a Y in chat for me, please. All of these are ineffective study methods. They just don't work. All right, we can stop with the Y's. Stop with the Y's. They just don't work. And when you ask students, what do they think is going to have the biggest impact on their learning? They will say rereading. They will say highlighting. They will say copious note taking. time and time again. And they just don't work. I'm telling you, it's criminal that we don't learn this. Like, how many highlighters have I gone through before I learned this? Okay, it just doesn't work. So let's talk about the two things that are game changers in learning how to learn. One is called active recall, and the other is spaced repetition. So we're gonna look at the graphs that talk through this. All right. So here is a graph from Ali Abdaal's first video. And what he showed is a group of individuals. So this was a scientific study that was done that Ali Abdaal has a video on. And so this study, what they did is they gave a group of individuals a chapter of something to learn. Like, let's say it's a chapter of I don't know if it was biology textbook. Let's say it was a chapter of a biology textbook. So they gave them a chapter of a biology textbook to learn. And then a week later, they tested them on the thing that they learned. Okay. And I think they also did a test like immediately too. Okay. So what they found is the group that studied it once, that's this column here. Like, you read the chapter and then that was it, right? You read the chapter and that's it. That's the group that obviously did the worst. Now here's where it gets real funky. And like blows my mind. This is the group that studied it once. This is the group. Whoop. All right. Great suspender out here. Jeez. This is the group that read it once. This is the group that reread it 4 times. This is the group that reread it 4 times. So that means they read it once, they read it twice, they read it 3 times, they read it 4 freaking times. Okay. And notice that it is less than the group over here that read it once and then talked out loud about the things they had just learned. So this is a practice called active recall, where when you're done learning something, you quiz yourself on the material that you just learned. Okay. So what happens here is that you read it once and then you say, all right, what did I just learn? Right. It's a big reason why, and some of you have seen this before, I have my rubber ducky on my desk. When I'm done reading something, I will literally talk to my duck and tell them everything that I just learned. Because if I just read it once and then quiz myself, test myself, actively recall, look at this, folks. Look at this. Let's draw a line. Look at that line. I am doing better than folks that reread it 4 times. So if you've ever studied for a test, if you've ever been in a class and you reread something more than once, you were using an ineffective study habit. So I can literally do better on my tests, right? I can do better on my tests by reading once, or literally doing a quarter of the effort, right? Let that sink in. A quarter of the effort and you will do better. What? Why? Like, I should open up a textbook and the very first thing in I don't care if it's a biology textbook, a math textbook, I don't care. That should be the very first thing in that textbook. Hey, you don't have to reread me 4 times. Just read me once and then talk out loud. What? And so Ali Abdaal walks through all the science behind this and kind of like why it's important and why it works. And it has to do with cognitive effort, right? The more cognitive effort that you put in, the more connections your brain makes. And rereading feels good. Rereading, highlighting, taking notes, all these things feel like effort. We feel like we're doing something, but it's not really that cognitively intense. It feels good. We feel like we're being productive, but we're not actually forming the new connections that we need in our brain. Dragonoid, thank you for the hydration. Cheers to you. right? So you can literally learn faster and learn more by reading once than you can reading 4 times, because the cognitive effort is there. Okay. Now, the next thing that's really important to note that is, Jen said, I'm taking notes and highlighting all of this right now. Now, the other really important thing to note is software engineering is a lifelong career. You are going to learn stuff every day. Things that might be impactful for you 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're going to learn today. All right? It's a cumulative career. And you got to keep all that in your head so that you can start to build bigger and better systems to go from that kind of entry level role to a more senior role. You need to like amass knowledge, right? Electro, Jesus, thank you. I appreciate the sub, right? And so you're signing up for a lifelong career. This is not like you learn one thing and you're done type career. So you gotta remember this stuff across your whole career, okay? And so there was this study that was done in the late 1800s. And I put an asterisk here because I use the word study very loosely. It was one person. It was a sample size of 1. But what he did was he would learn a set of letters. Like he would just pick a random set of letters. And then he would test himself on how well he remembered those letters at certain intervals. Okay. And so this was like a sample of 1, but it's been replicated. And what he found was that within 20 minutes of learning something, there was a 58% chance that like he still had it, right? Like, so that means like about 20 minutes later, he's probably forgetting like half the stuff that he learned. Just 20 minutes later, you're forgetting like half. An hour later, like 60%. By the end of 31 days, you will have forgotten 79% of the stuff that you learned. Diabolical said, I'm an idiot 20 minutes from now. No. And so this is just how our brains work. And this is called the forgetting curve. You learn something, and then literally 31 days later, like 80% of the things you learned, you don't remember. And this is some fudgy science, but you can experiment this with yourself. Everybody's forgetting curve is going to be slightly different. Like this is not a one size fit all thing, but the concept stands. You're going to forget stuff that you learn, and you're probably going to forget it a lot faster than you imagine you would forget it, right? And so that's why we need something that will flatten our forgetting curve, okay? And so here is something called spaced repetition. This is like the actual graph that shows a forgetting curve getting flattened, right? You're flattening the forgetting curve. And all it means is that the very first time that you learn something, like if we start here at this top left corner, we learn something. Let's say we learn HTML. Like let's say we learn and H1 is one of the most important, is the most important thing on the page, right? Like we learn that fact. By day 3, there's a 40% chance that we don't remember it, right? But if we had reviewed it a day later, by day 3, there's only a 20% chance that we've forgotten it. And if we review it again on day 3, right? If we review it again on day 3, 6 days out, we're at that 80%. So you can see that as we review more and more, the curve will go from being kind of almost like an exponential curve to flat. And of course, you're going to have to review it quite frequently. But the idea here is that if you can flatten the curve, you can remember this stuff for a long time. Okay. And so the way that we can flatten this forgetting curve is through a tool called spaced repetition. Okay. And so this is, again, Ali Abdaal has a wonderful video on all of this. And this is a graph from his video that's kind of a reproduction of one of the studies that proves this. right? So here's the idea that if you just study something once, that's the likelihood after like a 30 plus window that you're going to remember it. Pretty damn low. If you just recall it once, there's above a 20% chance that you will remember it. Just recalling once. And then here is the really big difference maker. This is mass studying, and this is repeated studying or repeated repetition. So what the heck does this mean? Mass studying would be like, all right, I'm going to study for an hour on Thursday. And that's it. I just study for an hour on Thursday. The likelihood that I remember this information is almost, what is it? Let's see. Look at that difference. Look at this difference, folks. From close to 80% to almost like 30%. So there we go. So we're talking about like an 80 to 30. So we're talking about like a 50% difference here, right? And what this means is that instead of studying all at once in that 1 hour block of time, you'd be better served of studying 10 minutes every day, right? So if you just spread out that 1 hour block of time over 10 days, as opposed to one big chunk, you have like a 50% gain in retention, right? And so the idea here is that if you're actively recalling, right? Like if we go back, if you're actively recalling, you're going to learn more in a shorter period of time, literally a quarter of the effort if you're actively recalling. And if you're using a spaced repetition tool, you're not going to forget the things that you've learned, right? And so one of the tools that I use for spaced repetition is something called Anki. Anki is completely free. You can use the web version for free. You can download it onto a Mac or Windows machine for free. The Android app is free. The only app that costs money is the iOS app. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad, I think it's like $25 now. It's pretty steep. But if you have an iPad or an iPhone, don't download the app. Use the web version, right? And what Anki does is Anki is a flashcard app with an algorithm behind it. And all it does is as the material you're learning is in this app, what it does is it knows when to show it to you. So it knows when to show it to you so that this forgetting curve gets flattened. So a lot of folks are like, well, Leon, I like regular flashcards. Regular flashcards aren't as effective as a tool like Anki that has an algorithm behind it that's specifically showing you stuff at an interval that's going to help you flatten the forgetting curve. So it's kind of like flashcards, but way more powerful because there's an algorithm behind it, surfacing the content when it needs to be surfaced. And so Anki should be a daily practice. Anki should be something that you do every day because you can stretch out your effort. If you only had an hour a day, right? If you only had an hour, like let's say you only had an hour, right? You only had an hour in your week. I'm hoping you have more than an hour in your week. Let's say you only had an hour in your week. You are much better off taking 10 minutes every day in Anki than you would be to studying that 1 hour. And that goes all the way back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that consistency, right? There's a reason why the folks that say, Leon, I'm going to chunk all my studying in on Saturday aren't successful because they're not using the science that shows them how to study. So when you say, hey, Leon, I'm going to chunk everything on a Saturday, the reason why folks, like at first I just assumed it was something else. But like once I knew the science, it's like, oh, when you're not doing daily consistency, your forgetting curve is way more steep. And so the folks that are just studying on Saturdays and not any other time throughout the week, their forgetting curve is so sharp. They're going to learn something, and by next week, they will only remember 20% of it. So no wonder why folks that try to learn how to code can't ever actually learn how to code if they're not being consistent. Right? So this is like, it's criminal to me that these two things aren't taught in school. All right. Active recall will enable you to learn more at a quarter of the effort, and spaced repetition will make sure the things that you learn you do not forget. Okay. Nage said, would you suggest making our own cards or using third-party cards? Always make your own cards. Always make your own cards. Why, chat? Why would I say make your own cards? Why do you think I would say make your own cards, chat? Yeah, Keiko's got it. It's spaced repetition, right? Like if you're making your own cards, it's active recall because you're recalling what you learned. And then it's also like another step in spaced repetition because you're using the things you just actively recalled to make your card. So you get a benefit of an extra session of active recall and spaced repetition when you make your own cards. Also, remember, a lot of this learning is all about cognitive effort. The reason why it's necessary for you to be able to manage your frustration is because the things that take more cognitive effort, like the things that are going to make the connections fire in your brains that you remember stuff, those things we perceive as frustrating. It's way easier to kick back and just read. It's so much easier to just kick back and read. It's so much easier just to glide that highlighter across the page. That's easy. The frustrating stuff, the things that require cognitive effort, that's where you want to go, right? And I think eventually you'll find that Anki is not so frustrating. When you first start, Anki is very frustrating because there's so much stuff in your deck. And it just seems like there's never going to be a way that I can review all this material. But once you're doing it consistently every day, you realize you only need a few minutes every day to do it. When I was commuting before the pandemic, every morning on my commute into work, I would do Anki. So I would take the 30 minutes it took me to commute in, and that was my Anki time, right? And so now, Andy Tran with the posture check, thank you. So now that I don't have, let me get good here. Now that I don't have that commute time, I'm not going to tell y'all when I do my active recall. But maybe you can guess. But I do my active recall at another time when I'm probably not doing anything else. So you should find you should find a time every day when you can do this active recall. I highly recommend Anki. I really enjoy that tool. It's completely free. Even if you're on iOS or iPad, like the iOS system, just use the web version. It's completely free. I'm only going to ever recommend free tools. That's my shtick, right? It's all free. Do I recommend the Cornell note-taking system? Yes, I like it. I like the Cornell note-taking system for one thing. I never take notes. I take questions. So like if I showed you my notes, they're on my iPad. I'll show them to you next class. Next class, I'll show you my notes. If I showed you my notes, I don't take notes. I take questions. So every single thing, like as I'm reading through, I'll say, all right, what is the golden rule of web development? What is the most important thing on the page? What is the syntax of HTML? Like I'll write questions. I don't write notes. I take questions because when I'm done learning, I'm going to actively recall through those questions, right? I'm going to use those questions as an active recall. Ninja, I've never heard of that app. I'll check it out. The only thing I'll say about other apps is each app probably, like some of them use the same algorithm. The reason I really like Anki is not because I think the app kind of sucks. Sorry, Anki developers. I appreciate you. You know what? I can't say that. I love Anki. Anki's the best. It doesn't look good though. And so the reason I like it is not because it doesn't the reason I like it is because the algorithm behind it. And so I believe that's actually open source. And so some other apps might have the same algorithm, but I've tried Super Memo. I've tried all the other big ones even the ones that cost money. And they're just not as Vaughn is saying, they're just not as effective for me learning personally. So I go back to Anki. I've tried them all. I go back to Anki all the time. Yeah. Cool. All right. Active recall, spaced repetition. These are the key. All right. Whew. Alrighty, folks. We're in it. We're in the thick of it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for putting in the cognitive effort to be here. I know a lot of you are coming after a long day of work. A lot of you are coming after a long day of making sure the family and the kids were okay. And so I respect the hell out of you being here. I respect the effort you're putting in. We got some work to get to. Some folks that have been here before, because during the 5-week boot camp, some folks might have been here before. We're going to talk about what's the internet. Okay. Now, hopefully you all saw that this was a web development boot camp, and you're here to learn how to build things for the web. And so I am going to ask everyone, even those that have been here before, what's the web? If you're here to be a web developer, what's the web? I want every single person that is watching right now to put into chat what they think the web is. You could literally say cat cigars, and I'd be like, oh, cigars for cats? That's exactly the internet. That's exactly what the web was made for. Every single person that's watching right now. So people left, they're like, I'm not doing this. What is the internet? What is the web? I see a wire for communication, a series of tubes, everything, cat memes, spider home, cat cigars. All right, I see you. A virtual web, a network, wires. Ooh, these are all good. All right. Learn with Leon. Cool. Electrons. All right. We're going to start with the idea that the web is a wire. Now, give me some creative liberties here. All right, we can stop spamming now. It's getting a little too hectic. I appreciate you all giving me what your thoughts of the web were. All right. Give me some creative liberty here. This is a high level overview of what the internet is, okay? You could spend your whole career on understanding how this works and optimizing certain pieces of it. So we're going to start with the idea that the internet is a wire. If we were all like jamming, like the pandemic wasn't a thing, and we were all in person together, thank you for the anonymous sub. That's awesome. If we were, oops, sorry, I'm moving too much. I'm jamming too much. Let me get there we go. All right. If we were all in a room together and we were all connecting, if we all just connected our laptops, our computers together in the same room, we'd have what we call like an intranet. Like we could share our cute cat photos with each other, right? As soon as we would take our like small network of computers and we connected them to another network of computers, we're kind of getting closer to what the internet is. Okay. And what I want us to think about today in terms of the internet is that it's really kind of connecting two kinds of computers. So the first type of computer is going to be a client-side device. And the other type of computer is going to be a server. Don't worry if you don't know what those are yet. We're going to get through them. I see people spamming nuns, and so I'm going to explain a story real quick. If my drawings are bad, don't blame me. Blame the nuns. If you're playing bingo, there you go. My mom was the queen of finding free stuff for me to do. Like, if there was ever a raffle, she did it. I actually got to go to Six Flags 2 hours before it opened and ride the new roller coaster 9 times in a row because she filled out a sweepstakes at Wendy's. Right? My mom was the best at that stuff. One of the things she found was that there was a free like art class every Saturday that was run by nuns. So every Saturday she would drop me off with the nuns, and I did art classes for years with these nuns. And so this is the result, unfortunately. Sister, I apologize. My drawing is not good. And so if you're ever like, Leon, your drawing is crap, your art here is not up to my standards, you can't blame me. You got to go blame the Philadelphia nuns. Okay, there you go. All right, so we're talking about the internet. We're talking about it being a wire, I love everybody's like, no, you're not bad, Leon. It's okay. Like you're doing all right. No, this is bad. We're talking about connecting two kinds of devices. Okay. We are talking about connecting client-side devices and server-side devices. These are both types of computers. Okay. A client-side device can be your phone. It can be your laptop. It can be a PC. Heck, you might have like a coffee machine that's connected to the internet, and that would be considered a client-side device. Okay. Then out there across the wire is another computer called a server. Okay. Now, the server has a really appropriate name. Anybody know why we call a server, or why it might be for now in this example, be appropriately named? What do you think a server would do? It serves, right? It serves. And think of like a waiter or a waitress serving you something, right? A server is going to do the same thing. It's just a computer that's going to serve up some information, okay? And that information is going to find its way to a client-side device. And that information is going to come into the client-side device, and we're going to be able to consume or see or interact with that information. Okay? So, two types of devices. Client-side devices can be our phones, our laptops, our desktops. Servers are just other beefy computers out there on that wire. Now, let's think about what our client-side devices have running on them. So let's think about maybe a laptop or a computer. You probably have some programs that are running on that device. So if I asked you to open up a Microsoft Word document, chat, what program would you use to open up a Microsoft Word document? What would you use, chat? It's not a trick. It's not some 300 IQ play here. Yeah, you would use probably Microsoft Word, right? Maybe if you're running a new Linux, you might use OpenOffice, or if you're feeling fancy, open up in Google Docs. But if you're on a computer and you want to open up a Word document, you probably would open up with Microsoft Word. So we could say that Microsoft Word was the program that ran Word documents. Okay. It's just a program that enables you to open, look at, interact with Word documents. If I asked you to open up a PDF, chat, what would you use, chat? What would you use to open a PDF? What would you use to open a PDF? Seems like a lot of folks are going with Adobe. All right. So you might have a program from Adobe running on your computer that could open a PDF. So we're already used to this idea that there are programs running on your computer that can open up files or different types of files. Word can open up Word. Adobe Acrobat can open up PDFs, right? A web browser can open up a lot of files. Probably could open that PDF too, right? A web browser like Firefox or Chrome or Safari is a program that's running on your computer that's really good at opening and viewing a specific set of files, right? For the sake of this example, the browser that's running on your computer is going to be really good at opening up three types of files that we're going to talk about today: HTML files, CSS files, and JavaScript files. Okay. So whenever we go to a website, this is what's really happening. When we go to a website, right? Let's say we're going to use Domino's.com as an example. All right. Let's say we're going to use Domino's.com as an example. When we are on our client-side device and we type in Domino's.com, what we are doing is making a request from our client-side device to that server. Oh, I forgot to point the right way. To that server out there on the wire. And that server is going to send us some files, some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript. Okay. Now, I would show you, But as many of you chat know, I'm not allowed to go to Domino's.com. I am no longer allowed to order Domino's. So for this example, we are going to use our imaginations and pretend that I am going to Domino's.com. I'm not even going to pretend type it in. If you're new and don't know this story, I'll tell it to you very quickly. And there are people like, wait, why can't I order Domino's? Here's exactly why I'm not allowed to order Domino's. When you are walking down the street and the Domino's delivery guy pulls over, like he's driving, and he pulls over, gets out of his car, walks over and says, "Hey, Leon, how's it going?" Grips you up, like gives you like a bro hug. And he's like, what's going on? How you doing? And you haven't ordered pizza. And that's just like how you've been living your life. That's the exact moment, apparently, when you're no longer allowed to order Domino's pizza. And so my wife is in the other room. She can probably hear me telling this story. I will not type Domino's into my phone. I am afraid. That's okay. So we're going to use our imaginations. So yeah, no more Domino's. We're going to have to use our imagination. So let's pretend. Let's pretend like we've handed our phone off to our little niece or nephew, and we're going to pretend. I'm going to like, see, look, I'm pretending. I don't have anything up here. I'm trying to show you. I'm going to type in Domino's.com into the browser on my phone, right? Pretend my fingers aren't touching the screen. Look, right? We're going to pretend. All right. So I've pretend typed in Domino's.com. What happens is that request leaves the browser that's running on my phone. And that request makes its way to a computer that Domino's is running. Domino's has a computer. And on that computer are going to be some files. There's going to be some HTML files, some CSS files, and some JavaScript files. And those files are going to come back to my client-side device. And my browser is going to be able to open those files. And when my browser opens those files, I'm going to be able to see the website. I'm going to see the beautiful Domino's.com website. Okay? Now, if you go to Domino's.com, such a beautiful site. I haven't been there in a couple of years, though, so it might have changed. But if you go to Domino's.com's website, Bilal, thank you for the hydrate. If you go to Domino's website, okay, you're going to see a delicious pizza at the top of the screen. And underneath that delicious pizza is going to be a list of ingredients. All that content, right? All that content, the stuff that you see, like the text, the images, all that content is powered by HTML. Okay. So if you've ever been to a website and you saw content, you were dealing with HTML. Now, Domino's outdid themselves. The pineapple is yellow. The ham is pink. The peppers are green. Like the actual ingredients are colored based off of like what the ingredient color would look like. It's centered. There's a lot of styling, a lot of positioning. So if you've ever been to a website and you saw color and styling and positioning, that's all powered by a technology called CSS. All right. So if you've ever been to a website and you saw something, that was HTML. If it didn't look like a dumpster fire or a hot mess, that was probably CSS. And then the coup de grace, the most beautiful feature that has ever graced a website or web application ever, is that on Domino's website, you can drag the ingredients onto the pizza. You can just go whoop and drag them onto the pizza. Oh boy. That behavior, that interaction is powered by a technology called JavaScript. So if you've ever gone to a website or web application, right? If you ever gone to a website, you typed in a website and you saw something that was HTML, It looked good. It had color, style. That was all CSS. And if you were able to do stuff, make things move or drag and drop, that was all powered by something called JavaScript. And these are 3 different technologies that you're going to use to build what the client sees. Like, I am the client of Domino's.com. I am going to see this HTML. I'm going to see this CSS. I'm going to see this JavaScript. Okay. So when I typed in Domino's.com on my client-side device, that request made it all the way to Domino's server. Domino's server said, "Ooh, that's Leon again. Watch out." And sent me the HTML, sent me the CSS, sent me the JavaScript. That comes back to the client-side device and we can see it. That's fundamentally what's happening when you go to a website, right? That very basic request and response is how the internet works, okay? Now, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, right? We call that client-side code. Another word you might have heard of it called is front-end code. The stuff that like you see, right? Think of like a restaurant. Like the front end would be like the menu that you can see and interact with. You don't really get to see what's happening in the kitchen. And you can kind of think about that in terms of web development as well. Like as a client, we get to see the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, but we can't really see what's happening on Domino's server. We can ask for certain things and they might respond with some stuff, but those things are separate. And so if you ever heard the term front-end web developer, what they're really doing is they're working on the stuff that you get to see and interact with. The HTML, that's the content, the CSS, that's the style, and the JavaScript, that's the behavior and interaction on your device, right? That's front-end web development. But think about what Domino's needs to do. They need to see if I'm logged in. They need to process my credit card information. They need to store my order into a database, right? All that stuff, all that code is running on the server. So we're just going to put C for code. All the code that listens for the request, all the code that processes the credit cards, all the code that stores something into a database like my name, my username, my password, all that stuff, right? That's all happening on the server. So you might have heard that as server-side code, or you might have heard of something called back-end web development, right? Back-end web development is not so much worried about the stuff that you're going to see and interact with, but all the things that need to happen for those files to get to you in the first place, to process credit cards, to store stuff into a database. And so as a software engineer, right? As a software engineer, you could focus on web development, right? And then when you're focusing in web development, you could focus just on the front end, like the stuff that users get to experience and interact with. Or you could be really jazzed about the back end and handle the listening for those requests, handle talking to databases, handle doing all that processing that happens in the background. Or you could do both. You can say, you know what? I'm going to work on the back end and the front end. And you would call yourself a full stack web developer. Full stack just means that you work on the code that runs on the front end and the code that runs on the back end. So what we're covering in this course is, yes, we're going to learn how to code, but we're going to learn to be full stack web developers. We're going to feel comfortable writing code that our users get to see and interact with. And we're going to write code that enables the server to listen for all those requests and do all the tasks it needs to do for our web application. Okay. And so we're going to build up to understanding how all these pieces come together. We're going to build up to how the nitty gritty of like all these things work. And it's totally okay if right now you're like, Leon, I kind of get it, but I don't really understand how they interact and play with each other. That's what the 30 weeks is for, right? The idea here is that you are going to start with the front end, the stuff we see and interact with, and we're going to build up to that back end stuff. Okay. All right. I saw a really interesting question that came through, and they said, hey, Leon, can a client-side device also be a server? And technically they can. On my laptop, or even maybe on my phone, I could run a server, right? But there are some reasons why I might not want to run a server on my laptop, right? Why might I not want to run a chat? Why might I not want to run a server on my laptop? What are some reasons that you think it can shut down? I think that's a good one. Yeah. It's not optimized. There might be some privacy things there, right? Like, it's unreliable. What if I had a lot of traffic? What if I hit the front page of Reddit? My computer would grind to a halt. My laptop would grind to a halt. Maybe I'm traveling. My computer might not be connected to the internet, right? Maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, I need salt or some, knock on wood, that this doesn't happen. Maybe my hard drive fails at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, guess what? I got to wake my butt up, fix the hard drive, make sure the power is plugged in, make sure that the weather hasn't taken out my power. All those things I would have to manage. I much rather pay someone to host my code. If the server breaks, if the hard drive fails at 3 o'clock in the morning, they have somebody that fixes it. If they lose power, they have a backup power source. If somebody tries to break in, they got security, right? If I get to the front page of Reddit, I can maybe scale up to other servers that are next to them, right? Nothing good happens after 3 a.m. So I'd rather pay somebody a small monthly fee to host my code so that I get all those benefits. And that's why I maybe wouldn't put a server on my laptop, right? So I like to keep those separate. All right. Other questions so far. We're gonna dig a little bit more into this. We're gonna keep pushing a little bit here, but other questions so far about the basics of what we're seeing right here. Are there cloud-based servers? So the cloud is an interesting term. The cloud is really just somebody else's computer, right? When somebody says the cloud, they're talking about like a lot of computers that like are networked and talking to each other, but it's really just somebody else's computer. I can run a server in my closet. There are servers in my closet right now. Those servers are listening to requests. I can watch videos off of that server. I can do a bunch of things off that server, right? So I have servers in my closet. I don't get all the redundancy and backups I have by putting that code on somebody else's computer. The cool thing is I'm not paying anybody any money per month for the servers that are in my computer. If I'm paying Amazon or Microsoft or somebody else as like a third-party reseller like DigitalOcean, right? I'm paying them to host my code and to connect me to the wire that is the internet and to power it and to do all the changes, right? And that costs a little bit of money. It's not a lot of money, but it costs some money, right? So that's kind of the differentiation there. All right. My website is on Netlify. Netlify is actually a server that you can put your code on this server, and it's actually free to do that. It's so cheap these days to host just static files, what we call HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I use Netlify to host my personal site because it's free, because it's just really cheap to host just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript these days. Before, you used to have to like buy a server or rent a server. Now there are some providers that'll do it for absolutely free. So my site's actually on Netlify for free. Yeah. Are we going to see and use AWS? Yes, we will use Amazon Web Services in the future. What are some examples of non-static files? Think about stuff that has to run, things that have to do things, right? Processing credit card information, things like that. Cool. All right, let's go a little bit deeper here. Let's go a little bit deeper here, right? So the whole idea here, right? The whole idea here is that our client-side device can make a request to a server, and that server responds with the stuff that we requested. And for now, we're just going to be requesting HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's start off that process. Let's pretend we're going to let's go to another website. So let's go ahead and say we're going to go to Facebook.com. Let's say we're going to go to Facebook.com. Okay. That request, like we start on our client-side device, right? We're going to start on our client-side device. That request will leave our client-side device. And if you're connected to Wi-Fi, it's going to connect to, that request is going to go through a router. It's probably going to go through some sort of modem. It's going to, at some point, connect. And give me some leeway here. We're talking about steps, not in the exact order, things like that. At some point, we're going to connect to something called an ISP. In chat, anybody know what an ISP stands for, chat? Anybody know what an ISP is? Yeah, okay, chat, I see you. Internet service provider. These are the folks that we pay money to, and they help connect us to the wire that is the internet. Now, I keep saying wire, and it really is a wire. Like, we can look at it. Like, let's look at this wire. Here's the wire. These wires, these big old wires, get laid across the ocean. Here's like a list of all of them that we know of. Like high frequency trading firms, governments probably have their own. But it really is a wire, okay? And this wire gets laid across the oceans, and it's what enables our cat photos to go from the US to London, right? It is this wire. If you look inside of these wires, there's typically like 8 fiber wires, I've heard. And those fiber wires can transmit 53 terabytes per second. 53 terabytes per second. So let's pretend, right? Let's pretend that you download movies illegally. We would never do that, right? I've never done it, never will do it. But let's pretend, okay? If you did, you would know that a high quality Blu-ray rip was around 3 gigabytes. Okay. So that's meaning kind of like almost the entire Blu-ray collection, like per second across just one of those wires. There's about 8 in each side, each cable. There's probably more now. Here are the ones that we know about. But what I mean is there's just a lot of them. Coco's, that's illegal, Leon. We just remember we said in our rules, nothing illegal, right? So that's a lot of data that can move through just one of those fiber wires. There's a lot of them in each cable. There's a lot of these cables. And the idea is that that's how all these requests and responses are going back and forth. It's through this series of actual cables, right? And if we go back to the wire, the ISP, where they kind of make a lot of their money, is we call like last mile. Basically, these big cables that are running across the ocean, these big cables that are probably like running between states, they're really not going to be handled by somebody like just Comcast. Ooh, Miss Turner with the stretching. Thank you. Hold on one second. Not that kind of stream, folks. There we go. We're back. Thank you for the stretch. I appreciate it, Miss Turner. So Comcast is and Verizon and some of the folks that you might know, we consider them what we call last mile. They're the ones worried about connecting the wire to your house, right? Like they're trying to connect you to the wire, and that's how they kind of collect their money. Now, there was an article that came out a while back. I have no idea if this is true or not. But there's an article that came out a while back ago that said when Verizon came to Boston, they were paying like $5 million a block to lay fiber wire. That's a lot of money. So as much as I hate Comcast, right, I kind of get why they charge a lot of money, because it's expensive to maintain these cables. It's expensive to run these cables, right? Thank you for the hydrate. I appreciate that, Dio. Right? And so I kind of get it. So our request leaves our phone, right? Leaves our client-side device. We get connected to the wire by our ISP, our internet service provider. And then there's another step too that's really important to talk about. And that is DNS. Anybody know what DNS stands for, chat? What does DNS stand for? Ooh, Victoria out the gate. I like it. Yeah, domain name server, right? Domain name server. Sometimes you might hear the word system thrown around depending on who you're talking to. All the DNS is it's another server, but you can think of the DNS as a really fancy phone book, okay? All right. Let's say we're good friends and I want you to show up my back porch for a party. Please don't show up at my back porch. We're not friends yet. Maybe soon, but not yet. So please don't show up at my back porch. But if, let's say I wanted you to show up at my back porch, right? Kids these days are like, yet. Let's say I wanted you to show up at my back porch. Meet up at Leon's. No, please don't. Let's say I want you to show up at my back porch. What can I give you that would get you exactly to my back porch? What could I give you that would get you exactly to my back porch? So I see some correct answers. I see some interesting answers. So I see people saying an address. An address is great. An address would probably get you to my house, but it wouldn't be exactly my back porch, right? Like the address would get you like close, like probably really close, but it wouldn't get you to exactly my back porch. I do see some coordinates though. Coordinates, latitude and longitude. If I gave you the exact coordinates, the exact latitude and longitude, you could find your way to my back porch using that information. You can think about how these servers work is kind of the same thing. We can think of the URL, like facebook.com, as the address. It's the thing that's easy to remember, right? Right? The address is the thing that's easy to remember. Like when we're talking to our friends, we don't want to have to say, hey, party at my place, 133.144.1551912, negative 173214.155519, right? We're not gonna be like, woo, let's do it up at 13445. Like we're not going to use like, it just doesn't make sense to talk about where to go in terms of coordinates, right? It would get us to places probably more exactly, but there'd be no way that we could remember it. So we have an address system. The address system, like 45 Cherry Street, is something that we can remember. And when we're talking to our friends, we can say, hey, go to 45 Cherry Street, right? So URLs are the address, right? That's easy to remember. But that's not enough information to get on Facebook's back porch, right? So what the DNS does is the DNS is just a fancy phone book. It takes the address and it gives you something called an IP address, okay? It gives us an IP address. An IP address looks like this. This is Facebook's IP address, 137.862.144.321. That's Facebook IP address. Of course, that's not Facebook IP address. I don't memorize these things because we use addresses, we use URLs, right? But let's pretend that's Facebook's IP address. What would happen is when I typed in facebook.com, at some point that request makes its way to a DNS, and the DNS goes through its records and says, all right, here's facebook.com, here's Facebook's IP address, and with that IP address, we can go find the server. All right, we can go find the server. Okay. Mars is like, I trusted you, Leon. I really thought that was their IP address. Right. So it's just like a fancy phone book. We give it an address. It gives us the IP address. And then with that information, we can find the server. Okay. We can find the server. So there are a lot of steps that happen. Right. There are lots of steps, a lot of points of contact. Your request is going to leave your phone. It's going to go through a router, through a modem, through the fiber cables to the street, from the street to a larger kind of a hub, from a hub. Maybe it might go across the ocean. It might find a server in the UK because maybe you're looking at rugby scores. That request might go all the way back across the ocean through all those connections back to your client-side devices. And it has to take 3 seconds or less. If it takes more than 3 seconds, people bounce. It's literally called bounce rate. Like, if it takes more than 3 seconds, people leave. Amazon said for every 1 second this process takes longer, they lose $1 million a day. So could you imagine being the engineer that like just tweaked this a little bit and it went up, right? And so the idea here now is that this is like, we do this all the time. Like right now, you're using all of this to watch me talk to you, right? And we just never really think about it. It just kind of happens. It just kind of works. It's robust, right? Right. And so the idea here is that this just works. And it works because it's built on a really robust system called HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It's the protocol that makes all of this possible. It actually sits on top of another set of technologies called TCP and IP, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. But this is the idea here, is that like these are some really robust, serious technologies, right? You could spend your whole career just understanding how this works. Like you could spend your whole career, like you could be like a network engineer that like works on this stuff day in and day out. As web developers, we really don't have to think about how this works. We just get the benefit of it working. As a front-end developer, we just worry about the stuff that's running over here. As a back-end developer, we just kind of worry about the stuff that works over here. And we kind of just take advantage of the system that's just really robust and works really well. So there are folks that spend their whole career learning about this stuff. This lecture could be 4 hours long just talking about like this part right here, right? But like I said, give me some freedom. We're just trying to do like high level, how the internet works. And it's just an idea that we're making requests. Servers are hearing those requests and responding with some information. Okay. Now, something fundamentally changed about all of this. And it changed for the better. All right. Change for the better. We're gonna introduce this topic and then we're gonna take a break. Okay, I promise we're gonna take a break. Something changed for the better here. Okay. Anybody know what changed that made all of this better? What fundamentally changed about this whole process? Ooh, General Knox got it. Nice. Yeah, it was one letter. One letter changed it all. That one letter was the S. Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured. So for the longest time, everything that left your client-side device and went through this whole maze of stuff to get to the server, and then through this whole maze of stuff to come back, that was viewable to everyone. Like anyone that was in the middle could see it. And for the longest time, they could see all the stuff you were sending back and forth. They could see like usernames and stuff like that. Like everything was just visible, right? HTTPS made it so that you really couldn't see everything. Okay. Donnie says the good old days. Yeah. In the good old days, there would be folks, not me. I never did this. I would never do this. I haven't done this. My friends haven't done this. My mom hasn't done this. I have never done this. But back in the day, there was a Firefox plugin called Firesheep. You could go to Starbucks or the coffee house of your choice, click one button inside of Firefox, and see all the information people are sending back and forth. Their usernames, anything that was stored in their cookies, you got. And it was just one click, not some like elite hacker stuff. And once again, I have never done this. My friends have not done this. My mom has not done this. Nobody that I know has done this, but this is through academic reading. I have heard of this thing. And it was called Firesheep. It was just one button. You can like Google it. It's still like, you can still find it. You would click one button and you got everything. Everything that people are sending back and forth, you could just sit there and see. It was really cool. I mean, so I've heard it was cool. All right. And so the S changed all that. And what it made it happen is that the stuff that you're sending back and forth gets encrypted and decrypted, and folks really can't see everything. There is still some stuff that can be seen. Whenever you make a request, you're sending a lot of information about that request. People can see the type of device you're using, the type of browser you're using. They can see your IP address. They can see the website that you're trying to go to. So that website you don't want anybody to know that you're going to, everyone can see it. That website, like I just saw a couple of people log off. They're like, oh shit. That website you're going to, not only can everyone see it, but there was a court case that said your ISPs now have the right to not only record it, but then resell that information to other people. Right? So everyone can see it. A lot of people tell me, hey, Leon, I use the Incognito browser to keep myself secure. The Incognito browser does nothing. The only thing it does is it keeps your history, right? It keeps your history so that when your significant other picks up your tablet and does this, nothing bad happens. Privacytools.io. Check us out, right? It just hides your history from other folks that may be on your device, right? So that's all Incognito browser does. But anyone else that's out there on this connection can see that weird balloon. Well, sorry, I don't want to say weird, but that balloon website that you really like going to, they see it. And they're reselling it to Target so they can target you with more balloon stuff, right? Everyone can see it. I say this not to like alarm you. I say this so that you know. Right? Donnie's like, Leon uses Incognito for Domino's. No, I don't do that. I'd say this to put that out there so that you know that you are in the 99.99% of folks that now know how the internet works. So I am now going to knight all of you. You are now all new knighted developers of the web. You must now go out and do good and well for the community because you now know how this system works, more so than like 99% of all people. Kaleem, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Right? You're all now newly knighted developers of the web. Go out and do good. Now, there are some ways to protect yourself. And some people are throwing in chat a VPN. A VPN can be a tool that helps. But VPNs are really for like two very specific reasons. One, if you trust another, I'm just going to draw a VPN over here. A VPN can be good if you trust another company more than you trust your ISP, right? So I don't want my internet service provider to have my history, but I trust this VPN provider to not keep logs, meaning they're not keeping track of the things I'm going to or looking for, right? Or if you're doing something that's you shouldn't be doing that's like illegal, right? Like downloading movies. If you're doing something like buying your drugs and guns online, please don't rely just on a VPN. Oh, I shouldn't probably talk about that. Shit. Never mind. Scratch that. Rewind. I didn't say anything about that, right? A VPN is not going to help you there, right? And realistically, a VPN is just you saying, you know what? I trust that company more than I trust that company. There are ways to roll your own VPNs and things like that. But that's what you're saying. So if you're not like downloading stuff and you don't want your ISP to know that you're downloading stuff, that's like the main reason you're going to use a VPN. Like I'm doing stuff that I probably shouldn't be doing, and I don't want the letter to go to my ISP and then me get in trouble. That's what a VPN, right? That's what it's used for. If you care about like the privacy stuff, then you have to trust the company you're giving your logs to. And so that's all I'll say. If you're interested in VPNs, what they do is you run a program that encrypts the data on your machine. That encrypted data goes to the VPN provider where it's decrypted. And then that request goes to the server. And then the server responds to the VPN and the VPN sends it back to you. You can think of it as a person in the middle that's kind of taking your request, kind of like telephone, right? Taking your request and then handing that request off to the other person. The other person sends the response, and then the VPN hands the response to you, right? They're just a person in the middle, right? And so I'm putting a big disclaimer here. A lot of people use VPNs because they think they're keeping them protected and safe online. Somewhat, but you have to trust the VPN provider. So if you're interested in a VPN, you know that you're downloading movies, you should go to privacytools.info. Privacytools.info. And so privacytools.info, what they do is they list all the major VPN providers. They do a really good job of telling you like what a VPN might actually be useful for and like what it actually helps with. Because a lot of people sell you like, people are like, it's a big thing right now. Like you go on YouTube, you're going to see 50 million VPN advertisements. Privacytools.info is really good at telling you like what a VPN is good for. And they have really good reviews of all the major VPN providers. Privacytools.io. Privacytools.io, my bad. .io, not info. Privacytools.io. They'll list all the major VPN providers. They'll tell you how to be safe, how to be secure. Now, there is VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. Basically, it's a private network that you're sending information back and forth to. Now, there's one other thing that some folks have been putting in chat, and that is Tor, right? Tor is referred to as the Onion Network. And basically, Tor is a way of doing this system, but it uses a different protocol. It doesn't use HTTPS technically to do this stuff. The example that you're given a lot is the onion. And so think of like an onion that has many layers, and inside the middle is your request. Okay. So you could use Tor, and that request gets handed off to another person. That person peels off a layer of the onion, and it gets handed to another person, and another person, another person, another person, another person, another person. Eventually it gets all the way to where it needs to go, and the person can see the request. The idea here is that request is bounced through so many locations that it's hard to track where it originally came from. Okay. And so that's the idea here. The idea is that this is a different network, a different way of transmitting this information. And so when people hear Tor, they think of like the dark web, ooh, right? But it's also a protocol that helps a lot of folks that actually might need that privacy or that security, right? Think about folks that are journalists in countries where they don't want journalists, right? So there are like real uses for systems like Tor. And so I encourage all of you to try Tor, right? Make some noise, right? Make some noise for the folks that really need it, even if you don't, right? I'm going to share some resources that talk more about HTTP. I'm going to share some more resources that talk about Tor. I'll post in the follow-up materials for today, privacytools.io. And I know this is kind of like a really high-level overview. So let's dial it back for just 2 seconds, and then we're going to take our break. Okay. This whole system is just about being able to make a request and get a response. When we are on our client-side devices, whether they be a mobile phone, a laptop, a desktop, what we are doing is making requests. Those requests go to another computer. That computer responds with some information. And the things we're going to learn about today is that it's responding with HTML, it's responding with CSS, it's responding with JavaScript. Those files make it all the way back to our client-side device, and the browser can open up them and render them. If you've ever been to a website and you saw content, that was HTML that came back. If that content looked good, that was CSS that came back. If there was some behavior or interaction that you could do on that site, that was JavaScript that came back. Okay. So we're going to spend the first few weeks talking about how to build websites from the front end in terms of the HTML, the CSS, and JavaScript. Once we feel comfortable with that and that we can build any experience that our users would expect, we're going to learn how to handle the servers and the back end. And then as we progress, we're going to bring them together to build full stack web applications. Okay. So I know it's a lot. I hope you learned something. I hope you had some fun going through this. I want to go ahead and take another 5-minute break, and then we'll go into the home stretch for this evening. Okay. Hey, thank you for the gift sub there. Appreciate you. All right, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. I'm going to bring up the timer. Here. once again, right? Take a break. Go stretch, hydrate, right? Take the 5 minutes. We'll be here when you get back. Take the 5 minutes. Who ordered Domino's? When do we finish? We're going to try and finish by 9:30. We're always going to go for 3 hours. So we got about an hour left, maybe 55 minutes after this break, 50 minutes after this break. So we're going to go always 3 hours. All right. Get up, stretch, go get some water, hydrate. Oh, shit. My time live is different. We got 30 minutes. We're going to go 30 minutes. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong timer. Whoops. Yeah, we got 30 minutes left. We're going to go until 9:30. All right, I'm going to put some music up here. If you have questions, go ahead and ask questions, but we're going to take that break. Envy said, hey, Leon, you used to play rugby. What position did you play? I played blindside flank. So I played for Yale, and I played for 2 National League teams. I played flanker for Yale, and then I played wing for the New Haven Warriors national team because I was the smallest person on the team. All right. What operating system are you using? I am using Mac OS, but I have a PC as well, and I use GNU Linux a lot. K-Doge, how are you doing? Doing well. I think this has been a good first class. I'm excited to see you all kind of learning some new things, having some fun, hopefully. It's a good day. No, I was at my rugby weight. I was 6'1", like 200 pounds, and I was like the smallest person on the freaking team. So I got pushed to wing. Where are you working, Leon? So I worked for a nonprofit called Resilient Coders during the day. Which flavor of Linux? Ubuntu right now. I'm a Debian person. I have an Arch machine. I have a Gallium machine. I kind of play around with a lot of them. Would you suggest the Firefox developer browser? Yeah, I think Firefox or Chrome are great, especially for this class. We're going to talk a little bit about that after the break. What is the function or purpose of HTTPS? It's the protocol for how all of these requests and responses are sent back and forth. G Monies, you can just ask questions here in chat. We typically only do like the Google form for office hours. What university did you go to? I went to Yale. Did you build the nonprofit or joined it? I was like the first or second employee, but I joined really early. Thank you, Johan. I appreciate that. Does a proxy work like a VPN? Sort of. It's just kind of like passing your request along. Not entirely like encrypting things though. Kind of just like a bunny hop. Typically, how much do you get paid for freelancing work? It depends. Typically, I bill out around $250 an hour. Is SQL preferable to Mongo? I like to think of all kind of languages and technologies as just tools on your tool belt. You're going to use them at different points in time. So I wouldn't say one's better than the other. It's just I'm going to use them in certain situations. What kind of books do you like? I like high fantasy books. Yeah. High fantasy. Fantasy. Reading Mistborn right now, the Mistborn trilogy. right. Oh, Rossi will go over the homework, but yes. Alrighty, folks, come on back. Come on back. I'm gonna kill the music here. Hope you got a good stretch in. Hope you got some water. Hope you hydrated. We got about 20, 30 minutes left. So we might go a little bit faster today. We might go a little bit over since it's the first class. So yeah, let's get into this, folks. Hopefully you had some fun. If we went a little too fast, it's all right. You can always come back and watch the video, and I'll share some other resources of other folks that kind of cover this stuff in detail. So if you want to kind of keep pushing and learning a little bit more about how this whole process works, I'll give you some resources for that as well. Remember, this is live, and so the idea here is to give good overviews for you to be able to ask questions, but we always find some more manicured resources that can be helpful as well. All right. Chat, who's heard of HTML5? Anybody heard of HTML5 before? Some yes, some no's. So HTML5 is technically like the 5th iteration of HTML. If we go all the way back to when the web was first starting, when we started using HTML and CSS, we had something called the browser wars. Basically, there are these competing web browsers that wanted to like own the internet. And so they said, well, if we make the best browser and developers use us, we'll kind of like own this internet thing. And what happened is you would go to write code for one browser and it literally would just break in another one. And so Sir Tim Berners-Lee kind of rode in on this white horse and tried to kind of like rally everyone together and made a series of recommendations about like what the web should be and look like and how it should function. Was kind of ignored in the beginning and slowly gained some support. There were some big events that happened that got folks to kind of start to agree upon, right, what the web should be and how it should work. He was eventually knighted for all the work that he did to bring the web into creation. And so we are on the 5th iteration of HTML as defined by the W3C, or the World Wide Web Consortium. This group that he started to kind of be like the think tank that pushes HTML forward, that says, here's what the things that we want to see happen, right? See the things that we want to see happen in the browser, in the web, right? And so you are probably the benefit using HTML5 to your own benefit without maybe even knowing it if you weren't aware of HTML5. We used to have to do a lot of weird things to get basic functionality out of our web browsers and out of HTML. Okay. So think about when you wanted to watch a video. Like me back in the day, I remember like clicking to watch a video and literally I had to open up another program on my computer that would run the video. Right? Then we got things like Flash or Silverlight that enabled us to run video in the browser, native, like not native, but like in the browser. And now HTML can run video natively, meaning that we don't need plugins. We don't need any of this extra stuff. It just works. So if you've ever watched like a YouTube video, like in the browser on your phone, you were using HTML5 video, right? If you ever listened to like SoundCloud in the browser, that was HTML5 audio. If you've ever done any of the IO games like Agar.io or Slither.io, those are using a new thing native to HTML called Canvas that enables you to build out those things like games. Also, like a real interesting thing about the IO games like Slither.io, Agar.io, and like all those other genres, a lot of them really aren't multiplayer. Like if you turn off your Wi-Fi, you'll still be playing the game exactly the same, looking like you're playing with a bunch of other people, but it's all client side and it's not actually connected to the internet. So that was that blew my mind when I realized that. Have you ever been to a website and it said allow or block location and I didn't have to like sniff your IP address? That's built into HTML5 now. Like this way of natively getting your location is built into HTML, right? And if you've ever spent a late night on chat roulette or Omegle talking about politics, you are the benefit of using something called WebSockets, now built into HTML and HTML5, right? And so it's like finding out Santa isn't real. Yeah, because how many people have like sunk hours and hours into those games only to realize that you were just playing by yourself the whole time. I think that's wild. Cool. So the idea here is that all this stuff got built into HTML, and so we get it all natively. We don't need anything extra or outside for this to work. Okay. Now, the important rule, the most important thing we're going to cover tonight, okay? The most important thing we're going to cover tonight is this golden rule. This idea of something called separation of concerns. We talked a little bit about kind of dominoes.com. Remember, if we saw something that was HTML, if it looked good, that was CSS. And when we dragged the ingredients onto the pizza, that was JavaScript, the behavior and interaction. This golden rule, this idea of separation of concerns is as such. The idea here is that our content should only ever be our HTML. Our styling should only ever be our CSS. And our behavior and interaction should only ever be our JavaScript. We shouldn't sprinkle style into our HTML. We shouldn't sprinkle content into our CSS. We shouldn't mix JavaScript into these different things. Okay? The idea being that we want to keep these concerns separate. Why do you think it's a good idea that we keep these concerns separate? I see some folks throwing it in here. Easier to debug, I like that. Readability makes updates easier, and organization, right? Organization is the big one. If you're working on a project by yourself, right? If you're working on a project by yourself, right? If you're working on a project by yourself and you want to come back a year later and add some new content, you're going to know to go to your HTML. If you come back to a project a few months from now and you want to make something pink, you're going to know to go to your CSS. And if you want to make something wiggle when you click on it, you're going to know to go to your JavaScript for your behavior and interaction. So it works well for ourselves to come back and work on the code that we've worked on in the past, but it works really well when you're working with a team. When you're working with a team, it's really good to be able to say, hey, I use separation of concerns. I agree to this idea that content is just HTML, CSS is just style, and JavaScript is just behavior and interaction. It enables you to come back to your own code and enables you to work well with others. Okay. JavaScript makes me wiggle. So most important thing tonight, if you just sign off now and that's all you remember, that was the important thing. Separation of concerns. Keep your content in your HTML, your style with your CSS, and your behavior and interaction with your JavaScript. All right. The first of the three that we've talked about, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, the first thing we're going to talk about is HTML. Okay. Now, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we would call them languages. But HTML and CSS, we specifically call markup languages. They're not fully fledged programming languages like JavaScript is. But since they're all languages, they all have spelling and grammar rules for each of them. Just like Spanish has special characters and special grammar. Well, languages, when we talk about programming languages and markup languages, they have like these rules that we have to follow. These spelling and grammar rules that we have to follow, right? Now, HTML has one very important bit of syntax, and that's tags. Every bit of content in your HTML must be wrapped in tags. Okay? Every bit of content must be wrapped in tags. Okay? So, if you ever have any text, anything on your site, it has to be wrapped in tags for HTML to work, to function correctly. And so the tags follow a pretty similar syntax time and time again. You have an opening tag, your content, and then a closing tag. And the major difference between your opening and your closing tag will always be that your closing tag has this lovely little /. Okay. Now, there are a few exceptions to this rule, and that there are a few self-closing tags. Okay. Now, the self-closing tags are okay because they're already content themselves. So an image is a self-closing tag because it's already the content. Here we have some text, and that content is going to be wrapped in tags. Okay. So images and inputs are kind of things that might skirt this rule a little bit, but 99% of the time, you're going to have an opening and a closing tag that wraps around content. Okay. Now, your opening tag can sometimes have superpowers. And these superpowers give those tags just a little bit more oomph or a little bit extra that they can do, or something that's going to help us later on. So for now, don't worry too much about what you see inside the opening tags. We'll get to that later on. Just know that your tags are going to open and close around content, and they have a very similar syntax always. Left caret, the name of the tag, right caret, that's the opening tag, your content, and then it closes with the caret, the /, the name, and the closing caret. So what I want to do is I want to show you some HTML quickly. Let's look at it, see what it looks like, and then we're gonna dive deeper into what it is and how it works. Okay, we're gonna go a little bit over, folks. We're gonna go about 10-15 minutes over. I apologize. My goal is to never really go over. This is the first class. We got caught up in the excitement. We're gonna go about 10-15 minutes over. Okay. If you have to leave, that's okay. No harm, no foul. Feel free to leave. The VOD will be immediately available on Twitch, so you can always come back and see what you missed. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at something. I am going to open up the starter code that I shared with you on Discord. If you want the materials to follow along, you should join our Discord community, !Discord, leonnoel.com/Discord. Agree to the rules, and you can see the follow along materials channel that will have the zip file. Download the zip file, and please make sure you unzip it. Now, to open this file, I am going to use a program called a text editor. Okay, so here's my text editor. I am using Atom. Text editors I think that are good fits for this class would be Atom, VS Code, kind of what your preference is. I have a preference for Atom. I've used it for a while. I like kind of my setup in it. But I think a lot of developers are kind of on VS Code or something similar. So it's kind of up to you. Just know the things that you're going to see are going to be Atom for me. So might be slight differences here and there between different editors, but that's what I use. So to follow along with this course, you're going to need two primary things: a text editor and a browser. I recommend Sublime Text, Atom, or VS Code for your editor. All of them can be found for free. They are all Sublime Text. You can pay for a different version, but the basic version is free. You just have to click an annoying button every once in a while. Atom is free. VS Code is free. And so they're free in terms of cost, but also in terms of software, which we'll get to later on. But pick one of them that you like, and you're gonna use that going forward. I'm about to start a war. I see it, right? What's available on Chromebooks? For right now, if you haven't gotten something configured for Chromebooks, you can use something like CodePen for today. Either CodePen or JSBin or JSFiddle. These are all kind of editors that just kind of work in the browser. But there are a lot of other ones that I'll recommend as we get further along. For today, pick something and we'll go with it. For this right now, you don't have to worry about following along with this one. I actually would prefer that you're not typing along with this. Let's just focus together. Let's work through it together. Let's talk through these ideas together, and you'll have plenty of time to work inside of your text editor later on. Okay. So here I'm looking at some content. Every bit of content must be wrapped in tags, right? If I'm writing HTML, every bit of content must be wrapped in tags. And there are many different types of tags in HTML. They all have a reason to why you would use them over another tag. There's about 30 different tags that you're going to need to write HTML proficiently, right? There's a lot more, but with just about 30, you can do whatever you want. So I'm going to introduce you to some simple tags now. We're going to work through some slides to see some more of them. And you're just going to slowly introduce more and more tags until we have ones that we're comfortable using all the time. Oh, 700 days. So we should Anki those 30. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Now, here I have first class 100 devs. To me, this seems like the most important content on the page. So the way that I would denote the most important content on the page is with a tag called an H1. Okay. So you see my H1 opens and my H1 closes, right? H1 opens, H1 closes. Now I am going to go ahead and save this. And I have a plugin called Open in Browser that's going to enable me to open this inside of the browser. Okay. If you would like to install this Open in Browser plugin, here's how you do it. If you are using Atom, and I'll actually plop a video in our Discord group after class that shows you how to do this. So don't worry about following along. I'm just going to show you real quickly. I'm going to do Command, comma. If you're on Windows or GNU Linux, you're going to do Control, comma. I'm going to go to Install, and I'm going to search for Open in Browser. Remember, you can always watch this video back to see what I'm doing here, but I'll plop an actual video in our Discord channel. I'm going to install this one that has 310,000 installs by Magical Man, right? And I just installed that. Once that's installed, I can now right-click, Open in Browser. And we're going to see something interesting. We're going to see that the first class 100 devs is big, bold, black, and beautiful, right? But there's something interesting about this. This H1 is big, bold, black, and beautiful, much like myself. But there's something interesting here. Why would this be interesting? Why is it this being big, bold? Why is that interesting? What's a little interesting about this? What would make something bigger and bolder and handle the styling and the coloring? What would handle that? CSS. Did I write any CSS? I didn't write any CSS. So here's the first rub as a front-end web developer, right? You're going to have to know how to handle these kind of weird little issues that pop up, right? This is one of the first. I didn't write any CSS, yet the browser is applying some default styling, right? The browser is applying some default styling, right? And so we're going to have to figure out how to code around that. But for now, we're not concerned about CSS. We are not concerned about how our content looks inside the web browser, right? We're just not concerned how it looks. If we care about how it looks, we'll care about how it looks when we get to our CSS. When I am choosing my HTML, I do not care how it looks. I am choosing my HTML tags based off of two things: their semantic meaning and their importance. Semantic meaning means like the reason behind that tag, like why you would use that tag. And every tag has a reason why you would use it. Importance means like how important is this content? You're going to see some tags share the tag that you would use, but change based on how important they are. So those are the two things I care about. I care about the tag I'm using and the reason why I would use the tag and how important the content is. I do not choose HTML tags based on how they are going to look in the browser. If you choose a tag, if you say, I'm going to use the H1 because I want it to be big, you have messed up. But if you say, hey, I'm going to choose the H1 because this is the most important content on the page, you're doing good. Right? So the H1, you use that to denote the most important content on the page. And it's supposed to be a heading that like describes all the stuff that comes after. So it is doing that job. It's a heading. It's describing the stuff that comes after. This is the first class. It's 100 devs. And it's really important. right? All right. Now, the next thing I have here is a big block of text. If we were looking at like a newspaper or a book and we saw a big block of text, right? If we saw a big block of text, stay with me for just 2 more minutes, and then we'll end class. Just two more minutes with me, and then we'll save the next thing for next class. If you saw a big block of text in a newspaper or a book, what would it be? Yeah, a paragraph. So let's go ahead and wrap this in a paragraph tag. So we have the open caret, then we have the P, which is short for paragraph, and then we have the right caret. So that's the opening tag. We're going to go all the way to the end, and we're going to do the same thing, but with that lovely /, right? Now, I could save this, and I could go open it in the browser, but do I care? Do I care what it looks like? Chat, do I care what this looks like in the browser? Nope. Right? I didn't write CSS yet. I don't care what it looks like. I haven't written any CSS yet. I am choosing tags for 2 reasons. The semantic reasoning behind that tag and how important that content is. This is a paragraph. It's a larger block of text. That's the reasoning behind me using that tag. All right. Next, I have a bunch of locations. We have folks that are in this chat from all these different locations, right? So I have a bunch of locations. What might I call this? This might be a blank of locations. This might be Podiman87 said it's a list of locations first. I saw that. Nice. So this is a list of locations. In HTML, we have 2 kind of lists, unordered list and ordered list. Unordered list you can use and nothing really have to worry too much about. It's just a list of stuff. An ordered list has to be in a specific order, meaning that if that content was taken out of that order, things could go wrong. Think of like a recipe. A recipe is something that has to be in a very particular order. Like if I'm trying to make brownies and I just pour the mix on the pan, throw the pan in the oven, pull the pan out, crack some water and eggs on it, like I'm not going to have delicious brownies. So even though this list of locations might be in some sort of order, the order doesn't have to be maintained. It doesn't seem like an ordered list to me. So I would use a UL here. So my UL is going to open, and I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to make sure it closes around all of the elements. I'm going to come down here and make sure it closes. Now I'm going slow. I'm taking my time here just so folks can see, right? But if I was doing this for real, I would be probably moving a little bit faster. So my UL opens and my UL closes, and my head is in the way a little bit. Now, when I have a list, like let's say I have like a grocery list, what goes on my grocery list? Okay, we are live. What goes on a list? Yeah, CornyNet got it. Chelsea got it. It's items. Items go on our list. So even though we are inside of our UL, each one of these needs their own tag called an LI. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some developer magic here. If you come back next class on Thursday, I'll show you how to do this developer magic. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give each one of these a lovely REPL. And then what I'm going to do is instead of typing these out one by one, I'm going to be able to do something that looks like this. Boom, LI, jump to the end, LI. Whoop. Come back Thursday, folks. I'll show you how to do this automagically. All right. So that's some developer magic here. All right. Somebody's got bingo. All right. Some magic here, some developer magic. But the idea here is that this was a list, and then each bit of content was an item on that list. And we got one more thing down here. My head's in the way. If you would like real-time answers to your questions, please join our Discord here. So this is another big block of text. So another big block of text would be what tag, folks? If I have another big block of text, what tag would that be? Yeah, it's another paragraph. But The only thing that has numbers are our heading elements, and we'll get to that on Thursday. So it's just another P tag. There's no P2 or P3. So we're just going to do P. Open and close. Cool. All right. P tag opens and closes. Wonderful. But there's something else interesting in here. Please join our Discord here. Chat, what does here stand like? Here sounds like a what? Please join our Discord here. Yeah, it sounds like a link. Like it wants us to go somewhere, right? It wants to go somewhere. So let's go ahead and wrap this in the tag for links, which is called an anchor tag. So my A tag opens and then my A tag closes. Now, remember we talked sometimes that our opening tags can have like powers that help the tag do what it needs to do. Well, a link needs somewhere to go. So our opening tag here for our anchor tags can have something called an href. And that href just has the place where we want it to go. So we'll do HTTPS. Remember, keep the S because we're secure. You're all newly knighted developers of the web. You can't forget the S. LeonNoel.com/Discord. There we go. That would take them to Discord. So what I've done is I've moved through my content and I've looked at the content and I say, all right, what is the purpose of this content? Is there a tag that matches that purpose? And then I use the tag that I think matches the purpose. And that's what I'm going to do for all of my content. And so what's going to happen is we are going to come back on Thursday. And on Thursday, we're going to start moving through all of these tags, learning when they're going to be useful, and putting them into practice. So, thank you all for joining the first class of 100 Devs. It's been wonderful to have you all. Hopefully you learned some things. Don't run away yet. Don't run away yet. Don't run away yet. When you leave tonight, you have some homework. You should start your homework tonight. The homework is to watch those 2 videos and to start the Learning How to Learn Coursera course. Okay? That course is intense. There's a lot of content there. I think they estimate like 15 hours to make it through. You got to start that this week. Okay? So make sure you watch the 2 videos so you learn the evidence-based study tips and then start the Coursera course. For the Coursera course, don't do the essays and don't pay for it. Like they have like a certificate you can pay for it. No, don't pay for it. Do it for free. Okay. So watch those 2 videos and start working through the Coursera course. That'll be your homework again. Like it'll be due next Thursday. All right. So make sure you go through that. We are going to do a raid. So for those that don't know what a raid is, we're going to go to somebody else's channel. We're going to send them some love. We're going to say hello. We're going to throw some of the micro Leon emoticons in there. We're going to throw some good vibes in there. And so we're going to raid somebody just to send them some love and to end the stream with some positivity. If you raid, you get more channel points. And you can use those channel points for all the fun stuff that you saw tonight. And so I hope that you join me for the raid. I hope you send them some love, some positivity. And remember, please make sure you've watched both the videos, right? Make sure you start the Coursera course. Don't save that Coursera course until like next week. There's too much, right? It's too much. The raid's very easy. I'm finding somebody right now. It'll show up here. You're going to immediately be placed into their chat. Only thing you have to do is hang around. If you hang around, you'll be good. So found somebody playing with a mini robot toy. And so we're going to go send them some love. Starting the raid now. So you should see it pop up in just a few seconds here. 1 second. Popping it in. Boom. That's the command. They're building some robots. Let's go send them some love. Let's send them some positivity. Have some fun. Have a great night, everyone. See you all at their channel. The raid should be starting now. See you all next Thursday.